Welcome to the Best Available Player Experience, also known as Best Available Podcast, episode 17. We have a special guest this time. You'll remember our first ever guest was Dr. Matt Harmon. He was only with us for about 40, 50 minutes, but this time we'll have a guest for the entire episode. And it might be a long one. We might have to split this up into two parts depending on where it goes, but we have Glen DeNigris on the podcast. We've said his name in almost every episode, if not every episode of Best Available Podcast. He is a great friend. He might have been the first ever guest on any of our podcasts when he went on Entry Level Experience back in early September. So that's where you guys might be familiar with him from. You might also know him from his website, CapsOn Sports. He does a couple podcasts over there. He's done some writing in the past. He was part of the Disney College program, and now we are lucky enough to have him on the podcast. So, Glenn, this is the first time anyone has heard from you on this site since September 3rd is the date that I have. So, how have you been over the last 2 months?
It's been great. Thanks for having me. Well, I should say thanks for having me, but I kind of just forced my way on to the show. I think I just said in a text message, "Hey, I'm coming on this week," because you guys did a lot of the segment that I created, Disney Plus and Glenn, and I was like, I got to get in on this because the great thing about Caps on what I do there is I get to talk about sports, but I really don't get to talk about movies and other things. So I appreciate being able to do that here today. The last 2 months since I went on Noah and Zach's show have been the same as the 4 months prior to that, unfortunately, with this pandemic. But, I feel like that's just the way it is for everyone right now. But, according to the news, there's a few vaccines coming out. So hopefully the world opens up. And with the world opening up, jobs will open up.
Oh, whoa, whoa,
and with
whoa,
jobs
whoa,
opening
whoa,
up,
whoa,
I will
whoa,
get some.
whoa.
What's up?
It's this we don't talk about politics on this show, Glenn. That's a
We
big.
don't talk about politics on
You're
this.
I've
getting
tried.
Oh, this is something we should have talked about. Well, I didn't say anything technically about politics. I just said there's a vaccine out.
Oh,
Well, remember the pandemic ended
Okay,
on November 4th. So, yeah.
That's true. That's true. Once the race was called, it's over. It's not a thing anymore. But regardless, hopefully, we get through this winter, and then by the spring and summertime, everything comes back to normal. But until then, I guess we're just stuck in our rooms doing podcasts for the foreseeable future. It's nice to see you guys. I this is the first time in like 2 years we've done a broadcast together.
That's true. You have to go back to
My last game, which was that I think it was like a Sunday game against Fairfield. I think I did it with Matt. Did I do it with Matt?
for what? Baseball or basketball?
The last basketball game. I forget I did baseball, but yeah, the last basketball game.
I think it was with me.
Yes. Yes, it
Um,
was. And you guys did senior day together.
yeah.
Just
yeah.
good times. Good times.
Well, Glenn.
So-
Oh wait, no, we did the Mac
well, yeah.
tournament.
Well,
Whatever.
I thought you
I'm
meant
sorry.
home
I'm-
broadcast
yeah.
because if so, I think
Home
I think I
broadcast.
did your last
Yes.
home one. It was against Maris.
Yeah, but our last technical basketball broadcast was that Catalina wine mixer up in
Wow.
Albany.
That was on the other
Exactly.
night. I thought every time that movie is on, I think about you and Zach and how
I hope
we
you
dropped
do.
it
I hope you
live
do.
on the air during the MAC championship game.
And the funny thing is the movie was on in the hotel room the night before. And Matt was very stressed. I think that's the correct word to use going into that game
I
the
think
next
I just
day.
wanted to leave
And
Albany.
yeah. But they made it to the MAC championship. They had like these incredible games. They beat Niagara in the first round. Then they beat, I believe it was, Quinnipiac in the
Yeah.
semis, right? Who
It
was
was-
before that?
Niagara, Quinnipiac, and then Canisius. Yeah.
And then Canisius. Okay, so they had these two like crazy games against Quinnipiac and Canisius. I think Quinnipiac was the crazier of the two. I just remember that game being wild. I don't remember a thing about it. But they made it to the championship, right? And me, Matt, and Zach expected to like lose to Niagara and come home right away. Like we didn't expect them to like do much. I don't want to speak for Matt, but that's just how me and Zach were. I'll speak for Zach. That's how we were thinking, right? So they make it to the final, and then we're just looking at us, and we're just looking at each other, and we're like, "Oh my god! Like, is this actually going to happen?" We're like trying to think of how we're going to afford to go to the first round of the NCAA tournament, how that's going to work, how like does the MTX have the budget? Do we have to pay out of pocket to go? And we're watching the movie just to like decompress, I guess. And we get to the scene where he's like the Catalina wine mixture, and I was like, Matt, I gotta drop that. I gotta drop that in the intro. I expected Matt to say no because just Matt was just very by the book at the time. I don't think that's a shocking thing. I don't think I'm breaking any rules here. But he was like, yeah, sure. And I was shocked. I was completely blown away that he let me do that. And then we did it on the broadcast, and it was really funny. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was when I ceased the by the book Matt, and then I became Pow Pow Matt. That was fun though.
Pow Matt. I think that was the big turning point.
And mind you,
Matt's
too,
life.
we did this right in front of an ESPN broadcast and a Westwood One radio broadcast crew. So we could imagine what was going on.
We had better seats than them.
Yeah, we did. But imagine what other people were saying on those, and we're talking about. We had the funniest of all of it, I think.
I think if you played every broadcast of that game from any outlet of network or radio or TV or whatever it was, ours would definitely be the funniest.
Absolutely. And we needed the humor, too, because it ended up being a somber evening for many Monmouth
I believe,
fans.
it was like 36-30, right? At one point, like they cut it to 6 late in the first half, and then the wheels fell off.
Yeah, but it was a really good team they were playing. So,
and you know what? It was a good run. I'm glad that for our senior year we got a run like that, and it wasn't that junior year one and done where they lost to St. Peter's.
I remember
in the first round.
I remember Nick and Ryan
went?
On the warm up the following day were talking about it because I was very invested and very upset after that game because no one expected a one and done to St. Peter's, and Nick was giving me some. Ryan remembers now that I jogged his memory. He's like talking smack about me on the air, and we had to stay for a 40-point blowout the next day, which was rough. But yeah, good times.
I board up that Niagara game. I board up the Niagara loss, and then the year before I board up the Nico Clarith game. So if you should have learned your lesson, don't board up me because bad things will happen. But you live and learn.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, how you doing?
Yeah,
Ryan, this is your show. You're the host. Like you got to say something here. I feel like this is the warm up again. Me and Matt just talking, and Ryan just like.
I didn't want to interrupt that reminiscing, but you guys were talking about college basketball, and we do have a college basketball expert on the show with us today.
Yes, you do.
So, Glenn, I need your expert input here. So we have a game going on right now between the Piedmont Lions and the Western Carolina Catamounts. So what do you think about this game? Who do you think is going to win?
I'll tell you this, Ryan. I've seen a lot of both of those teams.
Sure.
Like, I really sat down the last couple days, and I've studied, and I've analyzed, and I've dissected their rosters and the way they play defense and the way they play offense. And I think the first team you said has the advantage.
Piedmont, yeah. I mean,
yes,
they're only down by one.
Where are they from? Where is Piedmont?
Well, Piedmont is a Division III school, and they are located in. They are located.
Yeah, I have no idea, Ryan. This is all you here.
In Demorest in Athens, Georgia. They are on a rural,
I like Georgia,
300-acre campus. Tuition is $25,000.
I've driven through Georgia once. So I'll go with that.
Western Carolina is a pretty,
I can tell by
pretty solid squad.
I can tell by picking Piedmont, you're a big Ori Clements Owens fan. I'm sure you like his game.
Oh,
a lot.
yes.
Yeah.
I love the way he plays the game. I think his interior defense is spectacular.
Well, we'll check back because I'm sure the game will be over by the time this podcast is done. So we'll check back.
This will be a 6-hour episode.
I also just want to say the way that Glenn became a certified college basketball expert might have been one of the single greatest achievements I've ever seen occur, like unfold. You got 15. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like just one after another. It was 3 years ago, I think. The first round, first day of the NCAA tournament, you guessed 15 of the 16 matchups correctly. And just one
we were
after
all
another.
in that ESPN bracket, right? We were all in that bracket together. We had us and then a few other people from Hawk TV down there. in the ESPN bracketology, whatever they call it, every year. And you know me. I just go with the flow. Matt does it by numbers. I do it like, oh, that mascot is cooler than this team's mascot, so I'm gonna pick. That's how I pick sometimes when I just have no idea. So I just threw together. I made sure I had a couple 12 versus 5s or whatever that major upset always is. Is that the numbers? Are those the numbers? Yeah. So I picked a couple of those. I picked a couple of 7s. I picked a couple of 8s, not expecting much of it. And then you watch the game, and the first day always happened on the Saturday that spring break started every year. That's like when March Madness started every year. So I was home watching on all the TVs that I have, and a couple win there, a win there, a win there. All of a sudden I look and I'm perfect. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to document this. So I documented everything. Every time a game ended, I put it on my Snap story. I was like, perfect, perfect, perfect. And then I forgot which team blew it for me, but it was the second to last game of the night that blew it for me. So I got 15 out of 16. I had to throw it up on the Twitter bio because how could I not? And Matt, I did that and I documented it because of you, because I knew that in some way, I knew you were happy for me that I was so successful that day, but I knew it bothered you a little bit because I know you pride yourself on your knowledge of college basketball, and you did a very, very in-depth and very good blog, or whatever you guys call it over there, about every single team in college basketball and how you probably spent so much time on it, and you do every single year. And the fact that I just threw it together last minute had to bother you a little bit, and that's why I documented it, because I was like, I want to throw this in.
I think the delivery on some of the tweets or the snaps initially did, but then towards the end I'm like, wait a minute, he could actually do like something pretty crazy here. So then I think towards the end I started pulling for you. I'm like, wait a minute, like I appreciate we're that. Really on the. I never saw that. I mean, maybe like 10 of 16, but to get 15 of 16 on one day was pretty crazy to see. But that's.
And people didn't believe me. People were like, "Oh, you're full of
really?
it." But like, I had the screenshot of the app, so I was able to prove it, which is the best part. Is that I wasn't just being an idiot.
You nailed.
Or trying to be funny.
You nailed some games that I don't think a lot of America nailed at the beginning either. Like I wish I could pull it up. I tried to see on the ESPN website, but probably deleted after 3 years. But
yeah,
it was impressive. So that's how.
And the year before that, we talked about this in the group chat the other day. The year before that, I had Gonzaga going to the finals as like I know that's just the way it worked out when I was just writing everything down. And this was sophomore year. So Matt and me weren't, I'll say, as close as we are now. And Matt was like, this kid doesn't know what he's talking about.
Adversaries. We'll say adversaries
yes.
or rivals.
We were acquaintances more than we were friends. Yeah. I think that's fair. So Matt was like, this kid has no idea what he's talking about. And then Gonzaga ended up going to the finals, or at least the Final Four or whatever, got close.
No, they played UNC in the championship. You were right. Yeah.
Okay, so they did. Mm-hmm. And that was just perfect.
No, you nailed that too.
You must have been mad for that.
Well, that was before Gonzaga really, that was the whole thing, was they would get the 1 seed, but then they would lose. And we were all kind of waiting for the year that they would really break out and make the Final Four. Mm-hmm. And you went out on a limb and did it. And then you obviously were right, and they had a really good team that year too. So that was a really good call by you.
I think we went on a show on WMCX early in that tournament, and I said I think Gonzaga is going to make it to the final. And then you just fired me with like, why? Why do you think that? What about Gonzaga do you think that's going to make them that far? Why do you think whatever is going to happen? I was like, I just think it's going to happen. Leave me alone. And then it did.
That was a good pick, though.
Yes. In conclusion, I am a certified college basketball expert, and if anyone needs any advice on college basketball, they should come to me first and Matt second.
I second that. You should go to Glenn first. Glenn has a proven track record of picking games. Proven. My record's not proven. Picked Arizona 1 year. They lost to Buffalo in the first round. I forget what happened the year that you picked Gonzaga. I'm trying to remember. I think I had UNC, but I had some team that lost in the first round. So that wasn't too good. But Glenn is the certified expert here of college hoops.
I hate to stay on college basketball, but because we just have two people on the show that are so knowledgeable about it, I do want to touch on the Gonzaga and Kansas game. So we are going to talk about some sports in this episode. And Gonzaga and Kansas played on Thanksgiving. So if you didn't want to watch Detroit and Houston in football, you could watch Gonzaga and Kansas. And Glenn, I know, is a big college basketball fan. You watched the entire thing. Matt, I'm sure you did as well.
Yep.
I sent a text that says, I can confidently say Gonzaga will not lose a single game this entire season. And I still stand by that. I think they're a very talented team. I thought that they ran some cool concepts of Mark Few. He's run high-low in the past, but with the addition of Andrew Nemhard and the transfer, he got cleared. They ran an interesting lineup where they went Suggs, Nemhard, Iai, and then they moved Kispert to the 4, and then they still had Timmy out there. I thought that worked really well. And then to counter that, you saw Kansas go with 5 guards, which I thought was really interesting because I don't think you really see them do that a lot. And I thought they played well in that regard. But these are definitely 2 teams that I could see there at the, hopefully as long as nothing gets canceled, those are 2 teams that I can see they're definitely at the end battling for a championship in late March and early April.
Glenn, you want to go first?
I mean, it's just so hard because we don't know what this college basketball season. No, I'm being serious. I'm being serious.
I agree with you.
We don't know what this is going to be. Like, this is probably, like, we thought the NFL would be difficult. This is probably, and college football would be difficult. This is probably going to be the hardest sport to navigate through this coronavirus, in my opinion, because there's just so many moving parts. There's so many non-con. There's so many conference. These are kids, right? Our alma mater, Monmouth, has already had 2 setbacks. Like, whichever team is safest, I feel, is going to be the team that's going to be last standing. And I don't think this is a year where talent necessarily means you're going to be there at the end. So I think this is probably one of the more wide open college I don't know if to be honest, Matt's the more of the college basketball effort. Like, this, mine is just a shtick. I think Matt would agree. I think talent this year matters the least than it has in any other normal year, because like, we just don't know what's going to happen. Your star guard can just get coronavirus and then he's out, and then you're done.
And even for
we have
a lot of programs too, you get shut down for 2 weeks. I mean, Gonzaga played with coronavirus cases, but most programs have a 14-day quarantine. Just if you get one test, you don't even confirm it like the NFL does. You're just like, oh, we're done for 2 weeks. So you're right. I mean, it's a logistical nightmare, even more so than college football, because you have teams. I mean, Iona scheduled a game yesterday, then they're playing today. So like within a 24-hour span, you can be not playing, and then all of a sudden you're going to the Prudential Center to play Seton Hall. Like, it's just a logistical nightmare for so many teams. And, while there are some teams at the top that have more talent, I will tend to agree with you, Glenn. I mean, whoever's healthy at the end is probably going to win. I mean, it's just, especially with having to get these teams to March, like you said, then get them in the bubble in Indianapolis, and then play 6 or 7 games there for the tournament. I mean, who the hell knows anymore? I'm just happy there's games on. I'm sure you guys are happy there's sports on the TV, regardless of what it is. So it's nice. I will say I'm pleasantly surprised about the amount of games that have been played so far, in a good way. But I think that 14-day quarantine for just one test without confirming it or anything, just, putting the hands up, I don't know if that level of caution is going to necessarily guarantee a season. So I think there's a healthy...
I tell you one thing, it's going to be a nightmare on the committee when it comes to March. Like, we see it now with football. Ohio State has 4 games. How is the committee going to judge Ohio State on their 4 games when everyone else has played 6, 7, 8? And then the committee, how are they going to put these teams that are the first 4 in, first 4 out? How are they going to decipher which team gets into the tournament, which team doesn't, if one team played 10 games, the other team played 20?
When especially with an uneven non-conference. I mean, Monmouth, for example, their entire non-conference slate was wiped out by that COVID outbreak or COVID test. Meanwhile, you have Gonzaga, who's going to play. They had a ranked matchup last week. They're going to play 2 ranked games this week. Obviously, Gonzaga and Monmouth are 2 completely different schools, but for the sake of trying to be a mid-major team on the bubble as opposed to a high-major team like Minnesota, who's going to play 10 ranked games in the Big Ten alone, as opposed to Northern Iowa, who's not going to play any ranked games, in their conference play, it's going to be more of a heavy emphasis, I think, on just whoever. Who knows? I can't even finish that sentence.
I feel like this college basketball season, let's just enjoy it because
Absolutely.
it's happening. Like we should feel lucky that we're getting any college basketball because, as I said before, this is probably the hardest of any of the sports that have tried to come back to get through the entire thing and crown a champion. I think it's going to be the most difficult.
Well, I've been
thing
saying
to do.
that about any sport. I'm just happy we got stuff back. I mean, we're going to have an article go up tomorrow, I think, from someone we wrote who said, like, I don't think a lot of us realized how much sports were ingrained in our lives until we were sitting there in late March, like twiddling our thumbs, not knowing what to do with ourselves, right? And it's like, all right, I'm going to go, like, when you go to settle in your room and watch TV at night, right? You put on like a Yankee game in your case, or like if Ryan wants to watch the Eagles or the Phillies, and we got nothing, right? And it's like,
I don't think Ryan wants to do that anymore.
No. Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it, though. I mean, even I can say this as someone whose teams are god awful. Even bad sports is better than no sports. Like, even when the Phillies were blowing it at the end of the year, even though the Eagles are 3-6-1 and now third in the NFC East, I'd still rather have that than, Matt, as you said, the situation we were in late March and early April where there was nothing on, when we had to make do with reruns and Joe Buck commentating marbles going down a dirt hill. I mean, that was cool for what it was, but I don't know. I need sports. I need live sports in my life to just get through each day. So I'm glad that they're back.
Yeah, we were really desperate. We were streaming South Korean baseball, which was actually pretty entertaining, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. I wasn't into it the way I. It was a nice thing to watch, kind of like I would watch it, like sit down and watch a movie. But I wasn't into it like I was into a Yankee game or a Giant game or an Islander game, Ryan. But yeah, those first couple months, the March, April, May, where we didn't have anything, that was tough to get through. I don't think we realized how tough it would be until we had to do it.
I mean, for me, it was at least a little reduced because I got to watch The Sopranos for the first time, Glenn. So we got to to share that bond on that show. Did. Ryan, fantastic show. Something I referenced.
It's a masterpiece.
Now I understand so many of these accounts that post the pictures, like the out of context pictures, and it's just hysterical and intense. And
now you understand. If you watch other TV shows, you can see they take things from The Sopranos and they use it as their own. Like, that's something I noticed. Now I'm watching Star Wars, and in The Last Jedi, which is the third one of the first trilogy,
Return of the Jedi. Last Jedi.
Return of the Jedi,
film,
right?
So yeah.
Okay, yes. Return of the Jedi, there's a scene where like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker are getting like taken by this herbal tribe, and they're like hooked up to like a pole. You know what scene I'm talking about, Ryan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Matt, I'm sorry. Ryan hasn't seen it. Ryan will see it. But that's exactly what they did in Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like, wait, this is Pirates. So like if you watch these classic things, then you understand why other films and TV shows take it. Sopranos is awesome. Like, it's so incredibly good. And I think Ryan would actually really like it if he ever just gave it a shot.
It's like the perfect blend of like intense family drama, and then like they'll slip in one funny line and it just makes the whole show.
It's really funny. It's a really funny TV show. Like, when I started watching it, I was expecting, this is going to be just all, crime and blood and murder. But there's also this like family aspect to it, and there's this like mental health aspect to it that just adds just a whole nother dimension to Tony's character, where it's not just robbing a bank or sticking up a truck that's coming in the middle of the night or murdering someone. There's actually him struggling with his job, like struggling mentally with his job and the morality of it, and trying to raise a family, have a wife and 2 kids at the same time, and how he balances between being a mob boss and being a father. It's actually genius, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree as well.
But Ryan, I don't want Ryan to feel left out. Me and Ryan did watch Jersey Shore over the quarantine, and Matt didn't. So that's something that me and Ryan did.
Well, that's a feature segment. Nice little tease there. Feature segment coming on the show Eventually, I'm going to watch Jersey Shore and do some commentary on it. You guys think I'll like it, so I'm very interested to see.
I think you'll love it.
I'm very intrigued. I told you.
I haven't met someone who doesn't like it. The only people I met who don't like it are like the I don't know, the high and mighty kind of people who don't like reality TV. We love reality TV. I watch the Kardashians. I know Matt and Ryan are big Bachelor fans.
My new quarantine guilty pleasure has been 90 Day Fiance as well. If you want good reality TV, that's some of the crazy.
Is that Big Ed?
Yes. Some of the crazy situations that these people find themselves in is just hilariously awkward and just crazy. So that's my new reality TV guilty pleasure. But
reality TV is Ryan, what's your reality TV go to other than Jersey Shore?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I watch a lot of reality TV anymore. I mean, it's really
you gotta start. It's liberating because you feel better about yourself in most of these cases. Like if you watch an episode of a TV program that the kids on the street called My 600-Pound Life on TLC, you're like, oh my God, I'm doing pretty well in life, right? It's hoarders, right? Yeah. Extreme couponers. You meet like the lowest of the low people.
My Strange Addiction. You ever see that one?
My Strange Addiction. You really think better of yourself because you're like, oh, it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. And so if you see these people like in hoarders where you walk into their house and you can't even walk into the house because there's just garbage everywhere, or extreme couponers where these people are just like nuts with the couponing, like out of their mind, or my 600-Pound Life where they're unfortunately not healthy. You just feel better about yourself. And I think that's why we watch reality
I think those
TV.
extreme couponers were ahead of the curve with this whole COVID thing because they were probably the most set out of anyone when the
Doomsday Preppers. There's a show on Doomsday Preppers, like psychopaths. But yeah, the couponing I could understand because people like to save money, but that's so much time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's so much time. And you got to work at it. You got to spend money for a couple years before you make those coupons like work. So who has the time? Those are like housewives that have nothing better to do, I feel. So that's their hobby. I don't know. And people get this adrenaline rush from doing it, like it's a sport. And if they don't save $1,000, like if they're like at $950, like they're pissed, like they're angry. I don't know.
Well, Ryan and I were big fans.
What's next on the docket, Ryan?
Big fans. Do you consider Hell's Kitchen to be reality TV, Ryan?
Yes. I am a big Gordon Ramsay guy.
We are as well.
I think Gordon Ramsay fantastic. There's a few restaurants that Gordon Ramsay did on Hell's Kitchen, Kitchen Nightmare, the one where he goes to struggling restaurants.
Yeah.
Kitchen Nightmare, where he went to a few in North Jersey where I've frequented.
You're gonna have to text me that list. I'm gonna try and watch that over.
It was a restaurant called Grasshopper.
Okay.
And we used to go there all the time. It was up in Teterboro, which is like 10 minutes from me. I think that's the town. But we went there all the time, and then now that I'm thinking about it, that restaurant when we went was always empty, and it shouldn't have been. It was in a good location. It was right by MetLife Stadium or Giant Stadium back in the day, and I'm like, this is a good like restaurant, like bar, like sports bar for like pregame going out and then go to the game after. But it was always empty. So I remember when my parents said, "Oh, Gordon Ramsay's doing his show there," I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." So he did the show and he changed a lot of things, and then eventually the restaurant shut down. So Gordon Ramsay couldn't save it, but it was fun to watch it on TV and be like, hey, that's the booth I sat at. And Gordon Ramsay's making that employee cry at the bathroom that I go to. Like, it's just funny. It's just funny.
Matt, you've become a big cook over the quarantine, over the pandemic period. Could you survive on Hell's Kitchen?
No, I couldn't. Not at all. Mainly because I would laugh whenever he would yell at someone else, and then he would yell at me, and then that's how I would get kicked out of the kitchen. Because it's just...
Do you have that, like, instinct where if you're getting yelled at, you laugh? I have the same thing.
So I think it's the way the language he uses to yell at other people to where I couldn't hold it in myself, and then he'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like, and then I would be like, "I don't know."
It's like the British vocabulary. Like nobody like in America calls someone an effing donkey, right? But like he does.
I couldn't keep it. So Ryan, to answer your question, regardless of whether or not I could cook, I couldn't just keep a straight face.
What's your main dish?
See, I always got ridiculed at the house for not really knowing how to cook. But like I did, but like
I feel like that's not the only reason.
well,
Go
no,
on.
but like I figured I knew how to cook, but like at the same time, just go out and get a pizza is so much easier than having to cook, especially when you wake up at noon and you're already exhausted from the day. You know the college experience, right? You're just like, yeah. So it's tried to expand during the quarantine mainly because, as we talked about 10 minutes ago, we had nothing else to do. So I'm like, oh, I might as well try and cook, and mostly Italian stuff, Glenn, to answer your question.
Good.
It's mainly because I knew it growing up. Like my mom would teach me how to cook that, but I kind of expanded it during quarantine. So I guess that was my non-binge show quarantine activity. What would be yours, Glenn? So like if non like
I can make a mean bowl of cereal. Like I can't.
Well,
cook.
I
can't
meant
do it.
what was your quarantine activity like besides watching?
Oh, my
something?
quarantine
Yeah.
activity besides watching something. I don't know. I got back into video games a little bit. I got myself a Switch, which is right here. So I played a lot of Luigi's Mansion 3 because that's a big nostalgic thing for me because I remember playing the original when I was little, and then I went back and I played the original, and then I played Sunshine, all the old games. I got back into the old games, which is nice because I'm a big nostalgic guy. Anything that reminds me of a decade prior, I'm all for.
Yeah.
That's probably why I like the Goofy movie so much, is because
So
it's a
you must
90s
be-
thing. It's such a 90s vibe.
You must be a big Brett Gardner fan then, if you're a fan of something that reminds you of something that was good 10 years ago.
I don't think it's fair when people say I'm a Brett Gardner hater. I'm not. I appreciate what Brett Gardner's done. I just think it's over. I think the time is done, and I think it's time to move on.
I was just applying the logic that you said because I know we've had this Brett Gardner debate multiple times.
Yes, he's been a good Yankee. He's had some really big hits and big moments and big defensive plays as a Yankee, and he's part of the 09 championship team, so he's forever loved in New York. I think it's time to move on. I don't think that's a
No,
hot
I don't
take.
either, but some people think it's a hot take.
Some people that I have to deal with in my life, Matt and Ryan, you have no idea. Well, you do because I tell you, but like you have no idea what I deal with over there.
So, Glenn, I'm going to ask you a question. What
Okay.
what do you want to talk about? We can go in a number of different directions, but what
Is
would
this a
you like
multiple
to
choice
discuss?
question?
Yeah, this is open ended. So whatever you
Open-ended. I hated open-ended
They were the
questions
worst.
on tests. I like the multiple choice. Open-ended. If it's just my interpretation, I don't know. Well, it's your show. You can talk about whatever you want, but
Well, I would like to talk about what you would like to talk about. So that's why I raised the open ended question.
I don't know. I think it's too early to do Disney Plus and Glenn.
Yeah, we got to tease it.
We can go in
Instead
whatever
of-
order you want to go in.
Instead of talking about the movies that we've watched specifically, what do you guys think of the streaming services? Like, what's your favorite of the streaming services? Which has the best content?
There's so many now too because we're trending towards just getting rid of cable. Like, would you consider?
There's obviously the Netflix and the Hulu and the HBO Max now and the Disney Plus and the Amazon Prime Video.
I would even consider
all
On
these.
Demand to be a streaming service in its own right because of all the things that it's kind
That's
of
fair.
gained.
I think that's
well,
the OG. It's the OG.
Well, I'm saying because
kind
that's where a lot
streaming
of
service.
I'll still use that a lot just because it's like easy right through the TV.
But then you pay for it every
not-
time.
Yeah, well, that's true. Anything good on demand, you got to pay for. That's a good point. I'll probably, you know what? I'll go Disney Plus. I'll throw it out there because I
Really?
got it back in the summer because it had all the Star Wars content was moving there, right? And I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, and I wanted to watch the final season that Disney just made of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the animated series. So I watched that. Obviously, The Mandalorian's on there too. Fantastic show. Watch that. But then I start going on there, Glenn, and I didn't really realize how expansive their library was of stuff, right?
It's huge.
You know, stuff I loved as a kid, like Toy Story, all those movies. Fun fact, by the way, we need to make Toy Story 4 a weekly screening for us because that was the one I haven't seen yet. Because that came out, I guess, when we were in college, and I never got around to it.
I'm not going to spoil anything about Toy Story 4, but I will say, out of the 4, it's my least favorite.
Well, yeah, I could see that. I mean, the first couple were very hard to beat.
I think 2's the best.
I agree.
2's the best, and then I'll go 1 because it's the original. 3 at third, not because it's like the second to last. It's just because it's really good, but like the other 2 are just fantastic, right? And then I don't. When you watch 4, we can talk in more detail about 4. But I don't know, just 4 wasn't for me.
Yeah. So like Disney has like this perfect blend of stuff that I loved as a kid and stuff that I still love now. So I think I'm going to have to go with that as the best streaming service. That was kind of a shock to me because I didn't really know what to expect when I bought it. I thought I was going to be just watch The Mandalorian and get off kind of thing, but I'm still having it. We're going into like 6 months now.
Well, I made you guys do it because of the segment that we have. That you guys have. Yes. That you so graciously named after me.
Yeah, so for those that are interested, that came up because we were watching the Eagles and Giants game on a Thursday night, and Glenn had told us that Frozen was on Freeform, to which the other 3 of us replied that we had never seen it, and you could tell Glenn was lambasted. So he is making us
I was never more offended in my life. I felt betrayed. I felt backstabbed in a way. But I was like, I can't continue a friendship with these people if they don't see these movies that they need to see. Like, uncultured. I can't deal with uncultured people. So I think I'm doing you guys a favor because when this pandemic is over, right, and we are again thrusted into social situations, Matt is go-to conversation starter doesn't need to be what Appalachian State is doing on the basketball court. Like, right? He can now talk about a Disney movie, Frozen. Absolutely. Or Coco or Moana. Yeah. I'm really helping you expand your, I guess, depth.
Well, you can even branch it out.
So you should thank me.
I've thanked you after The Sopranos, I think, too. I mean, you've expanded.
Yep.
And I'll add Jersey Shore to the list eventually. So you know what, mm-hmm. Glenn, thank you. I mean, it's definitely after. Yeah.
I'm just trying to make you more well-rounded, interesting people.
I think
that's my project. That, you know what? Going back to your question, what was your big project for quarantine? Making you guys more interesting was my project. During quarantine.
We succeeding? Are we trending that?
I think you guys are. I think you guys are very succeeding. I think you guys are doing great. We just got to get Ryan on Sopranos, and we need to get Matt on Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
I feel like Matt on Jersey Shore is much easier than Ryan on Sopranos.
Yeah, probably. I will say that I never thought I would get a Disney Plus subscription because I went at least 10 years without really watching Disney movies. I thought I outgrew them. I thought I was one of the cool kids that didn't need to watch them anymore. But I've really started to like them again, thanks to Glenn. So I don't know if I'd go as far to say that's my favorite streaming service, but I find I'm using it more and more as the days go on. So that's a surprise for me. That's probably my biggest surprise of 2020, that I like Disney Plus as much as I do.
It's nice because I don't know if you guys have seen this part of Disney Plus, but they have like nice little series where it's like 8-9 minute cartoons of like Mickey and friends doing things, and it's cool to just throw on in the backgrounds. Hulu has the Animaniacs back.
Yes.
I don't know how big you guys are on cartoons and children's television, but entertaining stuff that they do with the little cartoons. Like they throw in some pop culture references for the older people like us. It's always a good time. A show that I recommend from Disney Plus, which is completely cheesy and dumb and stupid, and I love every single second of it, is High School Musical, the series. That show is awesome. I recommend that very much so. There's one season so far, so you guys, it's a quick watch. It's basically high school. It's like Glee, it's like Glee, but it's a Disney version of Glee.
Do I have to watch the movies to understand the show?
No, you don't need to watch the movies.
That would have been my question as well.
I don't like the movies. High School Musical is never my thing. I like Zac Efron, like he's one of my faves, but like I don't like High School Musical that much.
I saw the South Park episode where they did High School Musical, so I feel like I have the full experience of what those movies are like.
It's a lot like Grease. Have you seen Grease?
No.
I've seen parts.
So yeah, Grease is basically there's a guy, there's a girl, they're in different friend groups. They fall for each other, but it's not well received by you know how high school is, very cliquey, and you have to stay within your people. So Grease and High School Musical follow the same kind of blueprint of breaking those barriers between friend groups, and everybody like each other. So that's what it is. They sing a bunch of songs. The last song at the end is All in This Together, which is basically the culmination of all the friend groups, you know, the athletes and the scholars all getting together and being friends. That's the culmination of all that. And then there's 2 other movies that aren't anything to write home about, and then that's it. But the show is great. A lot of drama.
Well, sometimes drama shows are good, though. I mean, I think that's why Ryan and I are drawn so much to The Bachelor, is that there's drama week in and week out. Right, Ryan? I mean, you love that show.
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting this year specifically. So normally we have Matt give us a recap each week about what's going on. And so obviously there's been some crazy things happening this season 16.
He's on Google right now for anyone who's not
no,
watching.
I'm looking at something else. So we had Dale Moss from South Dakota. He went with Claire, but now we have somebody else.
Former Green
so
Bay
it's just been a
Packer
crazy
Dale Moss,
season.
by the way. Played practice squad guy, though, so nothing. You're not missing much with him, but.
Well, now, Matt, the audience rating summary for The Bachelorette on Google is 2.2. So what, do you agree with that? There's a lot of one-star reviews.
Well, a lot of it is due to the early season with Claire, where no one really liked her, and how she gave so much attention, Glenn, to this guy named Dale and nobody else. And then she made him propose, and then they got married after knowing, or not married, they got engaged after knowing each other for like a week or 2 weeks. So that's probably why
oh my God.
That's probably why the reviews are bad.
That's like Prince Hans and Anna in Frozen.
Yeah. See, now I know that reference. Yeah.
See, everything circles back. Everything circles back. I don't know. That I got into the only one season of The Bachelor I got into was the Colton season.
Yes, senior year, right?
That when he jumped the fence and like he had this whole like big thing.
Yep.
That I got into that, and then we talked about it on Baseball 4 a couple times on WMCX. Like we'd have like a segment where we talk about it. But other than that, I don't know. I can't. I don't know. That's the one thing. Like it's hard for me.
I thought you would have enjoyed it. I'm kind of surprised. Yeah.
I did enjoy it. I liked the Colton season. I was like, this show's actually really good. It's the thing is, there's a show that's good, and I admit that it's good, but like to remember to watch it every week is something that I forget to do.
Yeah.
Like that's why Netflix is such a blessing. Like I can watch all day, and I can stop when I want to and pick up when I want to. I'm never going to miss anything. So I think that's where we're going as a society when it comes to viewing content. They're just going to drop it, and then we're just going to watch it.
Well, that's the big thing too. That's one thing I've started to realize now that sports came back, right? So we started to develop these habits of watching things. Some things come on, the set week, 8 o'clock on a Tuesday or whatever, like The Bachelorette does. But I'm starting to increasingly now, especially, you're going to laugh, that college basketball's back and everything else. Like, I don't really have the motivation to sit down at 8 o'clock while, UNC Greensboro and Furman are playing. I'd rather watch that than...
Exactly.
So, like, I agree that that's kind of where we're going to. I agree with that. Because, like, Disney Plus, they drop Mandalorian every Friday, but I could watch it whenever. But then you get the people on Twitter who spoil it, so you have to watch it on Friday or you're never going to have it not spoiled.
They, I don't know. Are you caught up with Mandalorian?
Fantastic.
So I haven't watched it. I'm watching the originals just to get to the Mandalorian because I'm a sucker for what's like trending and I want to be a part of things. So I'm watching Star Wars to get to Mandalorian. They named Baby Yoda something else.
Yeah.
Apparently.
So
What's his name?
Grogu, which
Grogu.
you knew it had to happen at some point, but like one thing you'll realize, Glenn, now that you're getting immersed.
What was it originally? The
Yeah.
Child? Was that what it's
Mhm.
called? And Baby Yoda is just like a fan-made kind of name that everyone just widely
Yeah,
accepted.
it's just like easy recognizable, like that's Baby Yoda kind of thing. And you'll realize that a lot of Star Wars fans are crazy and they're never happy with anything, regardless of.
I've noticed.
So they are never, and you'll realize this more and more. And let me know right before you start the Mandalorian, because if you want to avoid having to watch. They introduced a character from the Clone Wars animated series, so if you want to avoid 7 seasons of that, I could give you the Wikipedia synopsis on that.
Ugh,
Yeah,
I'm not
so
watching
let me know when you get to that point. But I'll save you some
Okay,
time
well.
there. But Star Wars fans are never happy. Grogu is fine, like it's just a name. Who cares, right? So you'll realize I'm a very relaxed. I'm a content star. Like we're happy with what we could get. It's like I'm not the high-strung, uptight person that you would have think I was. That would have translated over to Star Wars fandom. So imagine college Matt. That's what Star Wars fans are. Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
God, I
Right,
can't.
and so you'll realize that as you get immersed in the Star Wars universe. But Ryan makes fun of it. He says, "Oh, Captain Corp saves the Andromeda Galaxy." Yeah.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
exactly what happens. I mean,
Okay.
it's pretty close. Ryan, I got news for you.
Yeah.
I am watching Schitt's Creek again because my mom wanted to watch it, and
yeah.
so I watched it the first time all the way through. I finished in like 7 days, like a week. Right? It was fantastic. I remember the Emmys. I was at Papetti's house. Matt knows him. Ryan, I think you vaguely know him, or know him by word of mouth.
I met
Went
him
to
once.
Monmouth.
Yeah, he was a great
Met
guy.
him once. Okay, so I was at his house. We were watching the Emmys, and there's an actor on a show called Rami. His name's Rami Youssef, and he was nominated for lead actor in the Emmy. And we're big like Rami fans. We saw right before quarantine. We saw him do a stand-up show in Brooklyn. It was a lot of fun, and we really like him. So we wanted him to win the Emmy. And then he didn't win the Emmy. He lost to Fred, right? Fred Levy, who was the lead actor.
Eugene.
Dad. Eugene, I'm sorry. Why did I say Fred? Whatever. And I was like, what the hell is this? I never even heard of this show in my life. And then they kept winning. And then Dan Levy won. And then Annie Murphy won. And then Catherine O'Hara won. And then they won for directing and writing. And I was like, I was so pissed, right? And we were going back and forth in the group chat. And you were thrilled. And I was like, this show's stupid. This sounds so stupid. And then I decided to like throw it on the next day because you told me that I would identify with one of the characters, but you didn't say what character it would be, right?
Yeah.
So I watched it, and then I watched like 2 lines that David said, like the first 2 lines of the series for him, and I was like, that's the guy that Ryan's talking about. Right?
Is that obvious?
So I watched the show. I watched the show in 10 days, and I thought it was great. Like the last 2 episodes, like the penultimate episode and the series finale, I was just crying the entire time. It was just so emotional and so perfect. I think that and Sopranos is probably my favorite series finales ever. I think it was perfectly tied up. I think every character got what they deserved. As my phone's ringing. So I watched it, and then like 2 days after I finished watching it, my mom's like, Glenn, watch the show with me, Schitt's Creek. And I can't say no to my mom, obviously. She's my mom. So now, like 3 weeks after finishing it the first time, I am now watching it again.
See, you're lucky too, because I had banged through the first 5 seasons last September, but then I had to wait until January for season 6 to turn. You could just watch it straight through, but that's how it worked for me too. I watched it and then I told my mom like, hey, this might be a show that you like, so I ended up watching it again. I don't. It's just I watch it a lot. I'll just put it on in the background if I'm doing something. I don't know if it's my favorite show ever, but it's up there. Just everything about it, it was perfect.
Well, I think it's going to become one of those Netflix turn it on for the background kind of shows because The Office is gone next month.
Yeah.
Ryan, you watched The Office during
That's something
quarantine.
Ryan did that. That was his quarantine little project, was The Office.
Yeah, I got through that, and I guess not very long. I think it only took me a couple weeks. But I'm glad I did. That was another thing where people talked about it so much. I was just like, I didn't want to watch it for that reason alone, but I had nothing else to do. So I got through the episodes, and that too was a a very good show. And that's another show I'll just throw in the background if I'm cleaning or just doing something else. Just throw it on. It's great.
Well, that's the reason why Jersey Shore is delayed for me, because I wanted to rewatch it one final time all the way through. Schitt's Creek's on the list too, by the way. I was going to text you guys the other day. That'll probably be an early 2021 project for me, but it's on the list of things for me to get to. I think Jersey Shore, you guys want me to see more immediately.
Well, the goal is one season every 2 weeks.
How long are the episodes? Pardon my ignorance.
The first season's like 9
So
episodes.
is it?
And then the next 5 seasons are like 12 episodes.
Are they 40 minutes long or like 20 minutes long or like what's the?
They're about 40 to an hour, depending on what it is, what episode it is.
But yeah, I remember the.
They go quick though, right, Ryan? They go so fast.
Yeah, I'm excited for when Matt gets to season 3.
Season 3 is the pinnacle of television history.
Yeah.
Season 3 is and season 4 is good too. Season 3 is absolutely amazing, but it would never fly today. I was talking about this with a friend the other day. Season 3 would not, like, they get pulled off the air if season 3 happened now.
Oh yeah, this would not have survived more than a season if this started like now.
I'm very intrigued. It's I feel like we live in a state too, obviously being in New Jersey, where a lot of people try and disassociate themselves with the show. So I think that's why for the longest time I never got around to it, because everyone's like, oh, Jersey Shore, like it makes the state look bad. I'm like, the state's already bad. Like we need to separate quality television.
Well, speak for yourself. I love the state.
I do too.
You go to Florida for 5 months, and then you tell me if you still hate New Jersey.
Let me rephrase. I hate certain things about New Jersey, like how I have to pay to go on the beach, or how I have to pay $10.
That's fair. There's things to hate about every state.
Or if I have to pay $10 or more just to go up the turnpike to work. You know, there's certain things, and there's tolls everywhere, but like tolls here are a little bit ridiculous. But I think people hate this state for the wrong reasons. And I think, Ryan, after you watched The Sopranos, I mean, I gained another level of respect for New Jersey after watching The Sopranos. And I think certain shows like that elevate it. So maybe Jersey Shore will elevate my love for the state as well. You're giving me a face, Glenn. Is that not the case?
No, I'm just saying, like, when I was down in Florida, I would say, hey, I'm from New Jersey. And they'd be like, oh, like Jersey Shore. I'm like, yeah, like Jersey Shore. You're goddamn right it is. Right? So, like, that's something I took pride in because, I don't know, it's funny. It's an entertaining show. And people are like, oh, it represents the state bad. I'm like, well, none of them are actually from New Jersey. Like, Snooki's from New York. Ronnie's from New York. Paulie's from Rhode Island. Mike's from Jersey. Jenny's from New York. Dina's from Jersey. And Sammy's from Jersey. And then Vinny and Angelina from Staten Island. So it's not really New Jersey. It's just New Jersey's where they go.
Fair enough.
So, I don't know. I liked it because I like going to Seaside and I like seeing the house.
I've never seen the house before.
You never seen the house?
No.
Have you been to Seaside?
I have been once, but we just did the boardwalk that day. So I saw the Shore store. I didn't go in.
Oh, it's right behind it.
Yeah, it's my parents were not the biggest fans of the show when I was that age, so they did not see the value of taking a slight detour to see the house.
Yeah, my parents liked the show, especially my mother. It was a big terror show for her. Like, she loved it. And obviously, like, I was in like 8th grade at the time, or that kind of 14, 15-year-old kind of age. So I didn't want to watch it with my mom. But there were some instances where I kind of didn't have a choice because that was the only TV that was not being used. So that had some awkward experiences for me. But the whole fam loved the show. And now we watch Family Vacation. Family Vacation's really good, Ryan. I think you should get into it.
Yeah, we talked about this. I watched the first season and a half, and then, because the second season was when we were at college, and I just kind of lost the whatever to watch.
The second and third seasons are like 30 episodes. So
Yeah.
you don't need to watch all of them. What you need to watch is the Angelina wedding, and then now, season 4.
It's crazy. 10 years ago, I don't think anyone would have thought that Mike would be like the most, I don't want to say normal.
Dude.
Yeah, coolest is probably a good way to put it.
The most down-to-earth, nicest dude. And Matt's going to experience Bad Mike.
Oh,
He is.
Okay, so I get to see his full character arc here, going from. Okay.
Yes, the character arc is really something.
Interesting.
But for the most part, I think Mike will be your least
Okay.
favorite, or Ronnie.
So who did you say I was gonna?
Ronnie's always
Who
my
did you
least
say
favorite.
I would like the most? Didn't we?
I think you would like Vinny
Okay.
the most.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. I'm very excited. You guys always quote this stuff, and there's the note that you put on the door at your office that.
And you had no idea
Well,
what it was.
I knew
yeah.
where it was.
Ryan, you remember we had the note
Yeah.
up in the e-board
Like I knew
office.
where it was from, but like I never knew the significance behind it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably funny, but like I never knew what was.
You don't have when you have the context of the note, you'll
What
really
season
find
do
it
I
funny.
find that in? So I know. Okay. Ooh,
2.
Okay. Well, that'll be fun. Jersey Shore and Matt will debut probably mid-December. So I'm
Very
halfway
exciting.
through The Office, so we're getting there. But
I think it's funny that I made all these segments for you guys. I think I am the executive producer of the show.
Yeah, you basically are, I think.
I shoot you guys ideas. I tell you guys what to do.
Yeah, we
You
don't
guys
do
do
it.
it.
We really don't do any of this on our own. It's just Glenn just tells us what to talk about each week, and that's how it goes.
I'm like the ghost writer of the show.
yeah,
Yeah, me and Matt do not do any of our own prep.
While I'm working for another network or another website.
That's
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that. I think Tyler would be mad at me if I didn't
Sure.
talk about what
plug
I
it
do
in.
at
Plug
CapsOn.
it in.
I do Baseball 4 and I do Ice the Kicker. Baseball 4 is obviously the baseball show that we brought back from WMCX, and then Ice the Kicker is a show I did with a friend from high school about football. That's pretty much it. Have you guys watched?
I like
or
when you
listened?
put. I watch the football ones when you put them up. I'll go through, and I
Okay.
like Baseball 4 when you guys get Cash really upset about something. That's usually.
Cash is upset over everything.
But because he'll throw out like a really egregious take every once in a while, and then Scott will get a little ruffled. But Scott is very calm, and he won't necessarily show it. But you could see, like I knew Scott outside of school too. Like we worked at the same summer camp for a couple of years, so I could tell when he gets a little ruffled by Cash, and then you call him out right away. And then Tyler is usually like the swing vote as opposed to work. So it's a fun dynamic. I loved listening to Baseball 4 when you guys were on the radio too. It was
Tyler's a swing state. That's definitely what he is. Ryan, are you a loyal listener to me or no?
Yeah, I'll throw it on in the background, like whenever
All
I'm
right.
working on
That's
something.
good enough.
So, yeah, I mean, some of your takes have triggered me in the past.
My Carson Wentz takes.
Well, yeah, that's it. Like, I hate when other people talk bad about him. Like, I can do it because I'm a fan of the team, but I hate when
Okay.
other people try to talk bad about him.
well, Ryan was
But-
talking. He was
but he's
talking bad
terrible.
about Carson Wentz before he was even considered bad too.
Yeah.
I mean he.
Matt, thank you. Yeah, okay. I've been
I
on
was?
this train. No, I have. I've been on this
Oh.
Carson Wentz is not good train for 5 years. Everyone else is finally joining up to me. I was right. I was on this before anybody else.
I think you should take credit. I think
I
right
will.
now on this
Okay.
show you should take credit.
I was day one Carson Wentz hater. Lock it in.
That's it.
I mean
Lock
I
it in.
remember him.
That's
Locked
what
in.
I'm gonna be
Now,
known for.
What do you think they do if they get a top 10 pick? Do you think they're going to go quarterback?
No. That's why I think.
Do you think Hurts is going to be the starter eventually?
Well, that's why I think that they should bench Wentz now, see what they have in Hurts, and just that way you can evaluate the position. I mean, the odds of Wentz not being on this team next year are very low. I'd be shocked if someone trades for him with the contract that he has. But I think you need to see what you have in this guy that you picked in the second round before you make any decisions. The fact that they're not playing this guy that they use in the second round would lead me to believe that he's not good enough and that they wasted the pick.
Yeah.
And apparently, we're recording this on Monday, and the Eagles play tonight. Apparently, Hurts is going to get more snaps tonight. I don't know what that means. It might mean he gets 4
Stupid.
snaps instead
I mean,
of
just
2.
start him, right?
Well, and the problem with that becomes the narrative is, oh, well, you're going to mess with Wentz's confidence. And then my response to that is, well, if
What
that's going to mess
confidence
with
does he
his,
have already?
well, not even that. It's just, if it's going to mess with his head that badly, he shouldn't be a quarterback right now in the NFL. It's if he's that worried about a backup coming in to where his confidence in his abilities is just going to go down. I don't want him as the quarterback of my football team.
Yeah. I mean, the Dolphins are doing it fine. The Dolphins have gone back and forth, and I don't think it's affected anyone's confidence, either Tua or Fitzpatrick.
It's a business at the end of the day, and the goal is to try to win. And if this guy, I don't care how much you're paying the guy, if he's not the best option, he should not be on the field. But we're going to see tonight. I really think that if he comes out bad, you'll see Hurts in the second half. That's just my theory. But Glenn, we're on quarterbacks right now. There's a black cloud right now around the Giants organization.
Oh my God, he's getting his MRI today. Did something happen?
Well, I read that they are bracing for him to miss some time. We're talking about Daniel Jones, who is now probably the best quarterback in the NFC East right now. But without him...
Well, he's the least bad.
That's a better way to put it. Without him, no disrespect to Colt McCoy, I don't know if the Giants will be able to continue this playoff push that they're on, that they're number one in the NFC East right now, but...
Yeah, leave it to the Giants to get to first place and then lose their quarterback, right? Like, Daniel Jones goes down. He was playing really well the last 3 weeks. He hasn't turned the ball over. He's playing well. Like, I've been a critic of Daniel Jones early in the season, and I've actually at one point advocated for them to just lose out and get Trevor Lawrence, because the Buccaneer game was like the low point of the season for Daniel Jones. He played terrible, and he was the reason why they lost that game. And I was like, I'm done with him. And then since then, he's played very, very, very well. And then they finally get some momentum. He's playing well. He has confidence. He's not turning the ball over. Then he gets hurt. And then Colt McCoy comes in, and you can just see the difference between the two teams, the Giants with Daniel Jones and the Giants without. Colt McCoy is just not like an NFL quarterback. Like, the Giants offense, they went backwards immediately. They settled for field goals. If it wasn't for a couple of bad Cincinnati turnovers, they lose that game, right? So a game that they were about to like march down the field, score a touchdown, and win handily, now they're eking it out against the Bengals that don't even have Joe Burrow, right? So it's important that Daniel Jones comes back as soon as possible. If he misses this week against Seattle, so be it. I don't think they were going to win that game anyway. So that's fine. Also, if you look at the NFC East schedule next week, I'd be shocked if any of those teams won. So I don't think you're really losing anything if Daniel Jones misses the Seattle game. I would hope that he's back for Arizona, and then worst case scenario, Cleveland the week after that. Because it's all there for the Giants. Like, if Daniel Jones was healthy, they'd be the odds-on favorite to win the NFC East right now. Because even though their schedule is probably the most difficult, they're also playing the best. Like, the Cowboys have an easy schedule, but those teams that are considered easy for the Cowboys are looking at Dallas and saying, oh, that's easy, that's a win, because they stink. So, I don't know. I don't know who's winning the division. You can make the case for any of the teams.
Well, okay, I wouldn't say any of the teams. I can't say the Eagles, but let me ask you this.
Well, you can until it's like, you can't take anyone out of it in a division like that.
I think the Eagles...
You could take out the Eagles.
I mean, Ryan, you have the most talent on just a sheer talent. If everyone's healthy, I mean, you have the most pieces to make a run.
They don't... It's a complicated situation, but I'll ask you this, and Matt, you can chime in as well. This is a question that every fan base in the division has grappled with. Would you rather make the playoffs with what presumably going to be a losing record, pick 19th in the draft, and most likely lose in the first round, or would you rather get that top 5, 6, 7 pick in the draft and get a game-breaking potentially player?
I think it depends on the team. I think each team has a different way of looking at it. I think if you're the Washington, and you don't have a quarterback, then I think it would be more beneficial to not win the division, get that 6th pick, and use it on a quarterback. Try to trade it for a quarterback that's going to be out there. I think if you're the Giants, where it looks like you have the quarterback, why not go for it? If you're the Cowboys, I don't know. With Dak out, I don't know. Maybe just like replenish, get him another weapon. Maybe it's better if they don't win the division. And then the Eagles, I think, jobs are on the line. And if you don't win the division, I think Wentz and Peterson could be out the door. So I think it depends on who you ask. in terms of the team and like the people within the team, what is more beneficial. If you're asking me as a Giants fan, sure, let's win the division. Why not? Because the quarterback situation they've seemed to like Daniel Jones, and they're not going to use a quarterback in the first round. So if you win the division, lose in the first round, and you get like what would it be, like the 16th pick or whatever it is?
It'd probably be
Mid to
19.
late 19th. You could still get a quality pass rush guy or quality offensive lineman at 19. I don't think it makes that much of a difference for a Giants team that has the running back and has the quarterback.
Well, I think the Giants would benefit from a playoff appearance in terms of exposure to try and lure in some free agents as well. I mean, I think making the playoffs,
Yes.
and especially for the Giants who haven't really been able to bring in the top tier free agents over the past couple of years. I mean, like Golden Tate isn't necessarily like the cream of the crop kind of guys, or like, like some of the people they've been able to bring in. I mean, playoff exposure definitely helps. And I think, you make a good point about Washington. I said this to Ryan before too. If you just put a quarterback on that team, I think they're the best team in that division by far. I mean, I think they're the most complete. They have, I think, the best coach in that division as well. You put a quarterback on that team right now, I think they're good. So I think they would benefit. But I it's so hard with this division too, because like if the Cowboys miss the playoffs, Mike McCarthy's seat is going to be on fire, even though he was never going to go anywhere because Jerry doesn't like to fire guys. And I agree with the Eagles thing as well. I think the city's going to burn down regardless of whether or not they make the playoffs or not. Right, Ryan? I mean, Eagles fans, I think, are kind of...
It's hard to fire McCarthy in a season where you didn't have a training camp, right? And your star quarterback gets hurt.
I still think in terms of what... I think Cowboys fans, like Eagles fans, are getting very impatient because they've been the...
Well, Cowboys fans are the worst.
Yeah, they're also Yankee fans and Laker fans and everything else. I mean, they...
Apparently.
I think for the Cowboys' sake, if they make the playoffs, they're going to think that they could get there without Dak. And then Dak's going to, fortunately for him, go to a city that actually appreciates what he can do. And Ryan and I have discussed this too. Like, there's just so many variables in this division. It's, to me, like, you can make the jokes like, oh, it's the NFC least, all these teams suck, but it has the most intrigue in the NFL. I mean, a lot of these teams could swing one way or the another depending on like one game.
And honestly, whatever team wins the division, right now they get paired up with the Buccaneers. What's our confidence level with the Buccaneers to beat the NFC East team? I don't have a lot.
They would.
It depends on the matchup, I think. But I mean, they don't. There's not really any teams I'm sold on in the NFC as a whole. So depending on which team gets at it.
I think the closest would be the Packers, but they have problems.
Yeah, I know Ryan's a very anti-Green Bay guy. I kind of lean that. Like, it could go any way. Like, imagine if, like, the Giants make the playoffs and then win a game. I mean, that could do wonders in terms of bringing people in. The draft pick will hurt not being so high, but you can make the case that you could find a quality player in the later rounds regardless. It's just a matter of development. So I'm tired of the NFC East slander now because there's actually a lot of like interesting subplots within the division. I mean, once you watch the games, that was crappy football, but like everything
absolutely.
outside of the actual 60-minute game is actually kind of interesting to follow.
Well, anytime, it doesn't matter if the teams are 10-0 or we're in this case 3-7. Like when all four teams are into it or involved in December, like that's entertaining. And I think, I don't know, we make fun of it, but also, as Matt said, like there's a lot of subplots and a lot of interesting storylines in the NFC East. So I think we should enjoy that and then ignore the fact that all the teams are bad. Because as we said in the beginning of this podcast, we're lucky that any of this is happening at all.
Yeah. I guess I have a different perspective because I'm a neutral party in this division. But like growing up in the area and being around all these teams, I mean, I remember when we were in high school and everyone was good, or even before that. I mean, those were some, like, it was always there
was times the last place team was
always
8-8.
like the 425 game on Fox. Like Joe and Troy were there, and like everyone would be talking about it in school the next day. Like Eli did this, or Tony Romo threw this pick, or whatever R Word's quarterback did something. So it's
Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb.
Kirk Cousins.
The Redskin quarterback back in the day was what? Jason Campbell or something
They went
like that?
through
He was one of them.
Campbell.
They've went through a lot. They've never had that
RG3.
guy. They tried RG3, it didn't work.
Well, those were some good games too when he played. So it's
That 1 year he had, yeah.
it's a fun division. I guess it's not fun if you're Ryan, who I feel like gets stressed over the Eagles all the.
Well, Ryan's stressed because on paper the Eagles should have ran away with this a month ago. They have the quarterback. Well, we thought they have the head coach that won the Super Bowl. All the other teams had a new head coach. There was no reason why, and also no training camp with those new coaches and teams. There's no reason why the Eagles didn't run away with this. And I think I'm aggravating Ryan as I keep talking, but it's just the way it is.
I don't want to disrespect the other three teams.
I think Peterson would get fired if he doesn't make the playoffs because everything was stacked for them and against everyone else because of the pandemic.
I don't think it's all on Peterson. I think he deserves part of the blame, but just from all the news coming out recently, it seems like he doesn't have autonomy over the guys who he plays and the things that he's allowed to do, which I have to imagine as a head coach, a Super Bowl winning head coach, is a little frustrating. Like there's the theories that the reason Jason Peters kept going to left tackle was because like the front office was telling him that that's where Peters needs to play. You can't move him. The reason why Wentz is still in is because they're telling him he needs to play. Don't put in Hurts. So I have to imagine that's upsetting him a little bit. And now there's a rumor going around that he kind of wants to be fired because it's not going to take him long to find a new job. A lot of different teams would hire him. So he deserves part of the blame. Ultimately, I think it starts at the top. I think that from at the top, this organization is very flawed. I think they need to change a lot because there's no reason why, Glenn, as you said, in a season where there was no training camp and the other three teams had new coaching staffs and new players and all this, that the Eagles are third in the division right now at 3-6-1. That's unacceptable. That should never happen. But it's just a year in the life of a Philadelphia sports fan. We're used to this, so we're just we put
you guys are going to lose Real Muto too. It's rough.
Yes, the Phillies apparently don't have any money to sign any.
They lost $2 billion.
Yeah, the Major League Baseball organization lost $2 billion this season.
Now,
in case
Scott
anybody was wondering.
from Baseball 4, Scott says that is a lie made up, perpetuated by the New York media to get Real Muto to the Mets. How about that for conspiracy theory, right?
It's a lie because if the guy really lost $2 billion, he shouldn't be the owner of a Major League Baseball team.
$2 billion. So if he lost $2 billion, then he lost the team.
I think they lost 145. I think that's what eventually came out.
I think it had to be a typo or something.
But I'm very upset to be a fan of that organization. It's a great time for me to be a Philadelphia sports fan. The Phillies are a joke. They might finish last.
The Flyers got the 1 seed. Unfortunately, they lost to the Islanders.
We got to talk about that.
But
there's nothing to talk about, all right? It was a 7-game series. They lost,
were also the
all right?
best team during the regular season, but due to a gimmick playoff setup, they benefited from the Bruins not trying, and that's how they got the 1 seed.
Well, Matt, we're lucky we got it at all.
That's true.
As we keep back.
That's what I mean. Now we got to find the silver lining, regardless of how poorly our team gets screwed over, or plays, or. So Ryan, yeah.
going back to baseball, like if you're the Phillies, and you don't re-sign Remuto, and you don't re-sign Didi after getting a Nola and a Harper and all these guys, like what? I feel like you're in between whether to go for it or not. I don't understand how they can give 13 years and $1 billion to Harper and then not add on that.
The reason Harper signed the type of contract that he did, which is spread out over 13 years and the amount of money he makes per year is relatively low compared to other stars in the game, is so that the Phillies could have more money each year to supplement the roster with other talent that could help them win. They didn't do that so that they could just let all this talent go out the door and not re-sign anybody else. So that's the frustrating thing for me, is that Middleton's worth $3 billion. He talked about spending stupid money a year and a half ago, but now because he lost $145 million this year, he doesn't want to continue to build a championship team. And so then what you're left with is Bryce Harper, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, probably Alec Boehm, who should have won Rookie of the Year, and nothing else. You have a very bad farm system. You still don't have a president of baseball operations or even a GM. That's not a good position to be in. That's purgatory right now. It's hard to see how this team improves unless they're willing to actually use the one resource they do have, which is big market, big TV deal, rich owner money. That's the only way this team can get competitive again, and it seems like they don't want to do it. And I talked about this to Matt a couple of weeks ago. Every other team in this division has either improved or it seems like they're going to improve. But the Phillies now, they're just at the bottom. They don't have anything where you can look and say, oh, this team right here, there's reason to be excited, because there's not anymore.
Yeah,
there's no reason to be excited.
If you look at the division, like if we go down the list, the Braves probably should have made it to the World Series. They're up 3-1. They blew that lead. The Mets now have a historically rich owner, right? That's just everyone's anticipating him getting 2 of the 4 big stars in free agency. There's the Marlins, who, say what you want, maybe they were a product of a 60-game shortened season, and maybe over the course of 162 that doesn't translate to a postseason berth, but they have a good farm system and they seem to be building things the right way. And then you got a Phillies team that should have made if you look at their talent, there's no reason why they shouldn't have made the playoffs in an expanded playoff field. That last weekend against the Rays, they got swept. They just needed to win 1 game, and they didn't do it. If I was Middleton, I'd be so embarrassed that, and maybe this is just the way I was brought up with kind of the Steinbrenner kind of mindset, where if you don't win, it's an embarrassment and humiliation. I don't know if that's the same with the Phillies and what they do, but if I was Middleton, I'd be so embarrassed that in an expanded playoffs, I didn't make the playoffs, and 3 other teams in my division did, including the Marlins, who haven't made the playoffs since 2003 and have a fraction of the payroll that I have, and the Braves almost made it to the World Series, and now the Mets are about to spend stupid money. If I'm Middleton, I'm panicking a little bit, because you can really quickly fall back into the mid 2010s where the team was horrible, like the 2015, 2016 Phillies.
Well, the
because
problem,
the division keeps getting better, and it feels like the Phillies are doing the opposite.
The problem is that they won't even be that bad. At least when they were that bad, at the time, there was a light at the end of the tunnel to where you're like, okay, they're waiting to build the farm system up, and then once the time's right, they're going to sign free agents, which they did. Well, now there's not even that. Now it doesn't seem like they're capable of building up the farm system. Now it doesn't seem like they want to spend any money on free agents. So now they're kind of stuck in that 79 to 84 win range every single year, and they're never going to make the playoffs. So it's just upsetting as a fan. The only thing they need to do this offseason was re-sign JT, re-sign Didi, and sign bullpen pieces. That's all they had to do, and they'd be a playoff team next year. But now you're going to lose a lot of your offensive production. You're just I don't know.
The thing is,
it's upsetting.
Why are so many major market owners and GMs so cheap now in Major League Baseball? I mean, the Phillies aren't an outlier in this either. I mean, the Mets for a number of years were like that. The Red Sox are like that now. I mean, it's one thing to be the Oakland Athletics and not have the money to pay people, but it's frustrating. I mean,
I don't know about the Red Sox. I don't know what their deal was. I think that was a strict luxury tax kind of thing. But the Mets had the Wilpons who just didn't care.
It's just I think it's bad for baseball.
And they got in trouble with they got into the Madoff situation. I don't think they could spend the money if they wanted to.
Well, I think the Red Sox too. I think the luxury tax is different when you have your best player that you've developed in your own system, probably in multiple decades. But
I think the killer with the Red Sox wasn't necessarily the trade of Betts, is what you got back was not
bag of rocks,
worth it.
But in terms, it was a bag of rocks compared to what he did. But for Ryan's case, I mean, I could feel the frustration of Phillies fans because, for all those years, they struggled to get attendance. I mean, the team wasn't good, and you make that you bring in JT, and he plays really well. I thought he was one of the more consistent players in baseball at some points. I mean, he's just really good player. And, I'd be interested to see what the sports radio and the fan base says if they let all these pieces walk. It's just frustrating for a major market team, and regardless of what the Mets situation was, there shouldn't be a major market team trading away or letting their big ticket guys go for nothing. And that includes Boston, Philadelphia. Like, none of that should happen, right? It's a star-driven league, and when they leave a major market, obviously Betts went to the biggest market, but if these guys go to other teams, that's part of what baseball struggles with, in my opinion. They can't market their big stars in big markets. Like, that's just my opinion. I don't know.
I mean, nobody knows Trout exists. Like, the casual sports fan, if they saw Mike Trout on the sidewalk, they would have no idea that it's Mike Trout, the best baseball player on the planet. The problem with the Mike Trout situation is that he plays out in Los Angeles, and he doesn't play for the Dodgers. He plays for, the team on the outskirts of Los Angeles in Anaheim that is a very, I'm not going to say bad organization. They won in 2002, but, it's not the Dodgers, not the Yankees, not the Red Sox. They're like the little brother, right? They're the Mets of LA. And that hurts. The fact that he gets 4 at-bats and then he's out hurts. That hurts any baseball player, because it's not like LeBron's on the court for 48 of the 60 minutes. Like, you see Mike Trout for like 10 minutes of a 3-hour baseball game. That hurts just the way the sport's designed. Also, out west, the games start at 10 p.m. Everybody's sleeping by the time Mike Trout's playing. I don't know. It's tough. And you know what? Part of it's Mike Trout's fault, because Mike Trout doesn't do really anything to brand himself. Trevor Bauer brands himself, right? Aaron Judge brands himself. He does commercials. When do you ever see Mike Trout do anything? When has Mike Trout done a home run derby? Right? It's the bare minimum that he can do as the best player in the game. Derek Jeter did it. Derek Jeter was in commercials. Derek Jeter branded himself. Not the way that millennials do now with their YouTube videos, but he was out there. He was the face of baseball. I think some of it has to fall on Mike Trout. I get a lot of pushback when I say that, because people are like, oh, that's not his personality. But when you're the best player in that respective sport, you don't have a choice. You have to be an ambassador for the game. You don't have a choice. You have to.
Yeah, I mean,
it's part of the job.
I think LeBron at times likes to be a private person in terms of parts of his life, but he's also stepped to the forefront.
Well, Derek Jeter was the most private guy ever. Like you don't know anything about Derek Jeter's private life unless he lets you know.
He's still...
But in terms of on the field and growing the game, he was still out there. He was on TV every single day. He was always in October. So there's a lot of moving parts to blame for Mike Trout not being like in the same sentence as like a LeBron or a Brady or a Mahomes, right? But some of it's on Trout, some of it's on the Angels, because we talk about the Phillies needing to spend money. The Angels have had the best player in the game and one of the best players of all time for 10 years. They made the playoffs once, and they got swept by Kansas City. Mike Trout does not have a single playoff win, and that team refuses to get pitching. Refuses. So if you talk about the free agent market this year with a guy like Bauer, who's the best in the market, won the Cy Young, and the teams that need him, the Mets are going to be in there. The Mets don't need him. They have Stroman, they have DeGrom, and Syndergaard's going to come back. The Padres might need him because Clevenger is out for the year. But who needs Trevor Bauer? It's Los Angeles Angels. I think if they cared about getting Mike Trout anywhere close to October, they have to get Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, so at least you're not an Angels fan, Ryan. I guess that's the... Mike Trout's got to go on Seinfeld. I think that's what you're trying to hint at, because Derek Jeter went on Seinfeld, right? So he's got to find a show equivalent of that. Yeah.
And another thing that's Mike Trout's fault. Mike Trout we can praise his loyalty to the Angels all we want, because not a lot of players stay with one organization their entire career. But Mike Trout knew that the team didn't have pitching. And he could have been a free agent this winter, and he could have gone to a team that did have pitching, and he could have been, the guy. But I think Mike Trout's content with, cashing his checks and playing in Anaheim. I don't think, regardless of if the
Well, they
team's
also
successful.
Don't sell out either. I mean, whenever I would turn on an Angels game pre-pandemic, regardless of if it was like a Sunday game when everyone could make it or like a weeknight game, there's barely anyone in the stands. It looked like a Phillies game from when they were tanking.
If you put Mike Trout on the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Phillies, those Northeast teams, like where the fan base is like live, breathe, and die baseball, that organization that had him would sell out.
Even
every
if you
single
put him
game.
on a team like Baltimore or Washington, those teams when they're good could sell out. I mean, you look at Baltimore when we were in high school, they sold out all the time, and they were. So I think, to expand on your point, any team in this region of the country, right? You make a good point. The 7 o'clock first pitch, the constant national TV exposure. I mean,
also he's a South Jersey guy. Imagine him in Philly.
Yeah,
you guys
Ryan
are down
probably
there.
imagines that all the time, but
Ryan would get an 81 game plan
would.
season ticket. He'd go to every single game.
That was the narrative for the longest time, that his contract would end and he would come to the Phillies, especially after we signed Harper. Those two are going to play together and things are going to be
Can you imagine?
great.
the city would melt. And the other thing too was that Trout goes to Eagles games.
That's not Jordan Pippen. That's like two Jordans.
And Trout's always at the Eagles games too, right, Ryan? So like he's been in the Philly area, and at least you got one of them, Ryan. You got Harper.
It's hard to turn down $400 million. I get it. I wouldn't. But with that, in those contract negotiations, like the Trout camp had to be like, yo, you got to get some pitching for me.
Got to put fans in the stands.
But to this point, they haven't. I can't wait for fans to be in the stands because we're going to go to that Astro game.
Zach is very
adamant.
He wants to dress as a trash can.
Zach is sure of it. Oh my God, I don't know. I don't think he's going to get through the metal detector with a trash can.
He's just got to take one from the concourse, and he's got to.
That's a good point. And then he'll get kicked out.
That's true. Unless he. Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe he's got to get like just like a costume version of it that's not metallic before you go.
Yeah, I think he goes to the Halloween store if they're still open. Doubt it. It's been a month. And grabs one of those trash can things. I don't know. I don't think he'll actually do it. Well, I hope there's people in the stands at that point by May.
Well,
I would hope. I would assume, but you never know with the way life is right now.
It hurts being in our region of the country too. I mean, if we were in like Florida, they're probably going to be.
Florida acts like nothing's happening. I don't understand.
That entire region of the country doesn't. Like if we might have to postpone it a year further, depending on what,
At that point, the joke's over, right?
I don't think Yankee fans are ever going to let that go.
I don't think they will either. But by next year, like Correa could be gone. Springer's probably going to be gone. So it's just going to be like Altuve and Bregman to yell at. Verlander's not going to be around.
Those are the two guys that you want to yell at, though. Altuve and Bregman, right? I mean, those are the two guys that are at the top of the list. So it's.
I still can't believe that like makeshift apology they tried to pull off at spring training.
And then when it
was just so scripted and Bregman was like this the whole time.
Or when everyone tried to feel sorry for Altuve for getting booed when they played against Detroit.
And they still made it to Game 7 of the ALCS.
Didn't they say that after a spring training game against the Tigers or something when he got booed and he's like, I felt really bad or something? Like, dude, you cheated.
Yeah, well, he should. Yeah, I don't understand. Everyone now needs to feel bad for you. Like, he's like, oh, well, I'm sad. Like, I don't care. It's your problem, not mine.
He created sadness for an entire city because he cheated. So,
but yeah, I think that team's dismantling. I think that window's closed with the Astros. I think Springer's going to leave. They don't seem to want to re-sign people. They didn't re-sign Cole last year. I haven't read that they have any interest in bringing back Springer. Correa's going to get a monster deal next year with all those shortstops. It's him, Lindor, Story, Seager, Baez. What a crazy offseason that's going to be. I think we've seen the end of this era of the Astros, to be honest with you.
Good. Good.
Yes. See ya. I read that Springer might be a guy for the Red Sox. What do you think of that?
How involved was he in that scandal? Not really involved, or
Springer? They all were.
Yeah. I guess we were too because we had the guy who orchestrated it in Alex Cora. But I'll take him.
Yeah.
at this rate, if you bring back Cora, you might as well take Springer too. I mean, just go full in on the PR nightmare.
Was there anyone else for the Red Sox, or
It was just
Cora?
Cora.
And that's it.
It's
Yeah.
I sure they put.
Hey, he served his time.
It's a ethical nightmare, I guess, but they really did it intelligently by bringing him back. What was it, like right around election time, or they brought him back during something big to where no one even knew it happened, so that people were going to show up in March for spring training. It's like, oh, Alex Cora's back. I'm like, all right, I'll take Springer. Why not?
Well, he served his time, so he should be able to get a job. The problem is, and we can turn this on Manfred, the time wasn't long enough.
Absolutely. And
I don't think there's a problem with anyone hiring him or Hinch after they serve their time. I think the problem is the time that they got wasn't
talk
long
about
enough.
the timing too. I mean, the Red Sox let him go for a pandemic-ridden season of 60 games.
Yeah, 60 games.
The Red Sox actually played well during the final parts of that season anyway, and then you bring him back, and then you could just start right back over. I mean,
I don't think it's going to be that
I'm not saying
easy.
they're going to go back to contending. I'm just saying they could start over.
I think the Red Sox are starting over.
No.
I don't think from scratch. I don't think they're going to bottom out.
But I'm not saying they're going to go back to a World Series contender, but I'm saying it's just they don't have to go through bringing in another guy, then he brings in his guys, and then Cora.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you expect from Sale when he comes back?
I won't miss him if he gets traded or leaves. I don't. It's, I see why we got him. We got a World Series out of it. Great. But, he doesn't do anything for me now. Most of the players on that team don't really do anything for me right now. So, I'm patient.
I mean, you got Devers and Bogarts. And then that's pretty much it, right?
Verdugo. You got JD Martinez still and all of his money. So
yeah, but for how much
I think
longer?
Another year, maybe two. There's a couple options.
So I don't know if he's going to be part of the long-term plan there in Boston.
But
I think it's Devers, Bogarts, and Verdugo, and then you got to get pitching somehow.
Well,
no pitching.
Trevor Bauer.
TBD was their starting pitcher every single day last year.
We could have put Ryan Waldis out there. He probably would have thrown better than
Ryan, you pitch, right?
Yeah, I pitched a couple games back in my day. My spin rate wasn't very good. The StatCast metrics probably would not have been very kind to me, but yeah, I could get it over the plate.
Ryan was on some very good teams growing up. I know we've talked about it before, but his Diamondbacks team, Ryan, you guys, that was the biggest collection of talent in our league in years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't realize it at the time, but that was a good team. I went so long without ever winning a championship. I came in second one year, but every other year was never good. But then I ended my recreational time winning 3 championships in 4 years, which was nice.
Ooh,
so
dynasty.
Yeah, I was kind of like the ringer. They would just kind of bring me in because they knew I had that championship pedigree, and I guess it worked. So that was nice.
The year I won a championship.
No, I didn't win a championship until high school.
I won a championship the year I broke my arm. And I wasn't even a factor anyway. I sucked. So it was, that was it for me.
I think I heard the story. You were diving in right field or something?
I don't even know. I broke... The stories of how I've broken my bones are just not the greatest ones out there. Ryan was there when I broke my wrist one time on Columbus Day, junior year.
Columbus Day. We don't talk about Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Columbus was a bad guy. If you want to get political,
he was a very bad guy.
Oh.
But if you watch,
no, we're not getting. We don't get.
Well, but if you watch The Sopranos, though, then it's.
You would know.
Yeah. But
that's one of the worst episodes, though. I don't like that episode.
Yeah.
It was kind of we need to address it kind of thing.
So he's a bad guy, and then a bad thing happened on that bad guy's day when I broke my wrist. So.
Antonio Meucci Day is what I call it now.
Yeah.
Because Ryan, I don't know if you know this, Antonio Meucci invented the telephone.
Don't you forget it. Yeah.
And he got robbed. Everybody knows.
Ryan.
Everybody knows.
And now
that.
you do.
Yeah, everybody knows that. I know that as well because it was in your Twitter bio for a number of months. So that's
It
how I
still
learned
is.
that. Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about bones, and so I think that would be a perfect segment into uh, a movie where we saw some people's bones, and that was Coco.
Fantastic,
Okay,
Ryan.
I like that. I like
Fantastic
that.
segue.
I was like, where is he going with this? But he
Fantastic,
did it.
Ryan.
Uh, by the way, just an update for our college basketball expert. He was really high on the Piedmont Lions, and going into the halftime, it was 43-39. They're only down by 4, and now they are down by 40, 92-52, so they couldn't keep it up. Glenn, I'm sorry. I know you're a big
Hey.
Piedmont Lions fan, but
I have a sweatshirt.
yes, I've seen this in person. He is a day one fan. He it's anyway.
I actually got into Piedmont and decided on Monmouth last minute.
I'm sure. What stuck out to you about Piedmont? Out of curiosity.
The campus was just gorgeous. I mean, the faculty was cool. The radio station was subpar. So that's what drove me to Monmouth because, according to, what was it, the Princeton Review, we have, top 15 radio station in the country? So shout out to the Hawks on WMCX for top 15 radio station. Piedmont can't say that.
No.
Well, Piedmont does have Marvin Hudson as an alum, Major League Baseball umpire who was part of the 2016 World Series. So I don't think Monmouth has that kind of alumni. So
What's our most famous alumni? Miles Austin?
In terms of,
Michael Sorrentino.
yeah, I would say in terms of sports, I mean, Alex Blackwell's up there. Miles Austin, Penn State lacrosse, Chris Hogan as well. He makes the list.
Christine Rampone?
Oh, absolutely.
Big soccer guy. Matt's a big soccer guy.
Yes.
Loves it. Didn't want them to fold and the country focus on other sports. He wanted money to be brought into soccer. We have that on video, right, Ryan?
We do have that on video. I'm looking at our alumni list on Wikipedia, reliable source. I can't say I've heard of a lot of these people.
Didn't Leon Hess go to Monmouth or donate or?
That's fun fact.
Remember Hess Hall was New Hall for a year?
Yeah, is that the same Hess though, or did that Hess have a?
Yes, that is the same Hess. Yeah, and he was also the same Hess that owned the New York Jets for a period of time in the late 90s.
Interesting. That explains why there's a New York Jets helmet at the Ocean First Bank Center.
Yeah.
That
I
would
never knew
explain
that until I read that book about the Patriots.
In that little weird athletic Hall of Fame little corner of the Ocean First Bank Center.
Yeah, the little
It's a weird
then you
weird
can watch
space
people work
because
out.
you got the window where the gym is under. You get to watch people on the treadmill. I don't know. Weird. It's a nicely designed building.
I would say it's one of the top
what are you
tier
gonna do?
Mac buildings. I would say it's up there.
I would say so too. I liked it. I don't know if I've been to all of them. I think you have, Matt, except
the
for
Buffalo,
the New York trip for a reason.
So I think I've been to 9 if you count Monmouth, but Monmouth is up there for sure. I don't think the two Buffalo teams would have compared. So it's a really nice facility for anyone listening who wants to go to a Monmouth game whenever the hell we could go to sports events.
I can't wait for Monmouth games to come back.
It's a fun experience. I mean, you're not sitting on like a wooden bleacher. You're not like you have like a seat back. Ryan laughs. It's true, right? You don't want to go to like a game and sit on a wooden bleacher with no like back support or
I laugh because me and Glenn had to do that.
Yeah, so it's you will be comfortable in your seat when you go. That's the moral of the story.
Absolutely.
Well,
we can talk about Monmouth after we talk about Coco.
I was going to say I was very comfortable in my seat when I was watching Coco last night, which I put off until Sunday night again. So for those of you that don't know Coco, despite his family's generations-old ban on music, young Miguel dreams of being an accomplished musician like his idol Ernesto de la Cruz. Desperate to prove his talent, Miguel finds himself in the stunning and colorful land of the dead after meeting a charming trickster named Hector. The two new friends embark on an extraordinary journey to unlock the real story behind Miguel's family history. So that was released in November.
Do you get that bio from Disney Plus?
No, I got it. I searched it on Google.
Okay.
So this was released when we were juniors at Monmouth in November 2017, and me and Matt just got around to watching it now.
Me and Matt were in Virginia when this movie came out.
Interesting.
Yes, you were.
Interesting.
Or in Florida. Or Jacksonville.
We spent a lot of time together over that 2 week span.
Oh my God, way too much time together. Way too much.
Yeah, but we have good stories from those trips though. So.
But let's talk about Coco first.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I wasn't saying that. I was just all right. Ryan, go segue back into Coco for a third time.
So even if you've never watched the movie, you've probably heard that it takes you on a field trip, and it definitely did for me. It had a big plot. Spoilers, by the way. It had a big plot twist, which I was not expecting in the movie. I did not think that De La Cruz was going to be the antagonist, but he turned out to be. And Hector, the guy that I didn't know what to make much of, was actually one of the good guys, and I didn't know that. So that was a great plot twist by the people over at Disney and Pixar. It was a very good movie. So I'm looking at my Disney Plus watch list right now. It might be at the top. It might be.
Ooh,
for me, it's at the top.
It might be.
Yeah. So for me,
I like that.
I like how there wasn't forced music, right? So it was a movie about music, and this isn't a disrespect to the movies we watched prior, but like, I like how it was a movie about music, but we didn't spontaneously burst out into song every 2 seconds. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, I liked what Frozen 2 did, but one other thing I also liked there we go, was, as Ryan mentioned in the description, just the colors of it, right? I mean, so we started out with Frozen, right? In this kind of no pun intended, frozen land, and it's like dark and, wintry, and then we go to Moana and it's really bright, sun shining, light blue water, that whole vibe. And now Coco's using every single different color imaginable, and it was just, the visuals of it were great in my opinion. Ryan, the plot twist, I agree, was quite intriguing.
Well, I'll say this: the cover art, or not the cover art, like the little box art that you see on Disney Plus, you can see the little kid, you can see the dog, and then you can see the guy that's clearly not De La Cruz. So I guess that should have been a light bulb should have gone off at that point before I even started the movie. But you brought up the graphics, Matt. I think that visually how the movie looked really brings it to the top, especially at the end of the movie when Miguel starts singing.
That's
you can you can just see all like this woman's face that's just so wrinkled and everything. You can just see it just start to finally come to life after like an hour and a half of watching this film. I think that scene, I mean, there's a lot of great scenes in the movie, but that scene alone, I think it just really drives it home. The way they were able to animate that and just that I was speechless when I watched that.
Yeah, it's one of the best. I mean, Pixar always comes through for the most part. I mean, we can talk about, the Cars sequels might not have been that good, but most of the time, Pixar really tugs at the heartstrings. So Coco was something I didn't watch in theaters. I watched it a few months later. It wasn't even on Netflix. There wasn't a Disney Plus at the time. And it went on Netflix for a little bit, but not at the point where I watched it. I watched it illegally on one of those websites that you're not supposed to watch on. Don't prosecute me. And I watched it, and I was like in tears for like an hour. It's like, so it's not sad though. It's sad in terms of the theme of like life and death and life after death and all that kind of stuff. But like, it's happy that everybody gets what they want at the end.
Yeah, I thought it was very unique,
and Miguel
unique approach to that as well. For me, and I don't know if we're going to get into the ratings of it. For me, it's a 9.1. It's better than it's
9.1.
It's the first 9 that I've given on this segment. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was going in expecting to just be like sad and crumbling, and like I thought it was going to ruin the vibe that I got during the day of the Patriots winning and everything else, but it was a nice nightcap to a solid day.
I agree. I think it's a good movie. It gets you at the end, but the journey up until that point is very fun. About like a little boy that's just running through the afterlife, trying to figure it out. But yeah, I like what you said about music. It's not like a forced musical. There are musical numbers in it, but that's more of like a concert
that's why
setting.
When I first read the description and sat down, I thought it was going to be like Frozen or Frozen 2 on steroids in terms of music and again, it's not a bad thing, but like I think I more enjoy the vibe of slipping it in once in a while, but not every 2 seconds like we're going up a mountain, let's sing about it kind of thing. You know, it's
yeah. I would agree with it being better than Frozen 2. I loved Frozen 2. I think Frozen 2 is great, but I don't know, something more. What puts us over the top of Frozen 2 for me is that it's an original story. It doesn't build on anything. Like it's a story in and of itself. So that gives it like the advantage over Frozen 2 for me. But if you'd ask me if you combine Frozen and Frozen 2 and then compare it against Coco, then I would say the Frozen franchise like exceeds it. But I thought Coco was really good.
Ryan, what do you think? Where does it rank?
I have it above Frozen 2 as well. So I'm looking at my watch list. So I've watched 6 Disney movies since this entire thing started. And I think it's definitely at the top, above Frozen 2. It's just on as I said, I knew there were emotional components to the movie, and I thought I kind of had them hammered down. I thought when Hector looked like he was going to be forgotten, I was like, okay, well, that's got to be the emotional moment that people were talking about. But then Miguel sang, I was like, all right, that's got to be it. But then you see Hector walking over the bridge with the entire family for the first time. I was like, okay, well, there's all these things happening together. So, yeah, I think I gave Frozen 2 a 9.3. So I think I'd give Coco 9.4.
Wow. This is starting to get one of your favorite movies of all time territory, if you're giving 9.4s.
Yeah, okay. Well, my rating scale for movies is different than my rating scale for pizza. We need to distinguish those two. I'm a little harsher when it comes to pizza, but
okay.
Yeah, 9.4. That's I think that's for my scale. That's yeah.
Now the question is, what movie am I giving you this week?
Yeah, so Glenn gave us. He was so nice to give us 4 options this week.
I'm a man of the people. I wanted to give you guys multiple choice.
No open-ended for this.
There was,
but a few of them Matt has already seen, which surprised me.
There's Big Hero 6, Ratatouille, Tangled, and Princess and the Frog. So there's some options there, certainly. I've heard good things about Tangled.
Do we want to watch that? Ryan, have you seen any of those 4?
Tangled is like Rapunzel. It's the story of Rapunzel, and it's just expanded to a 2-hour movie instead of just a little fairy tale. Big Hero 6 is about a kid, like a science-y kid, trying to build like a robot or something. I don't know. I saw it so long ago, I don't even remember. Princess of the Frog is the old fairy tale. If you kiss a frog, you become a frog kind of thing. Whatever you guys want.
I've seen Ratatouille before.
You've seen Ratatouille,
times.
Okay.
Well, that was a big... I took French for a lot of my schooling instead of Spanish, which in retrospect was stupid because I'm never going to use French. I would have used Spanish a lot more.
Are you French?
No. But
then why...
Because
I took Italian in high school because I'm Italian.
Okay.
And I hated it, but I took it because of that reason. But what was the reason behind French?
It seemed like the class itself in middle school was easier than the Spanish component. Like it seemed like I could just bullshit my way through it. Okay. And then at that point, once you go into high school, it's like, all right, well, I guess I got to stick with it. I mean, they're going to let me skip French 1 and go up to French 2, so I guess I should just
Did
stick
your high
with it.
school force you to do 2 years of a language?
I think 3.
Yes.
Right, Ryan? Yeah,
3. Yeah, 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? We were 2. Thank
So-
God.
Yeah, and I was lucky. I mean, Matt was the same way. I mean, because we were able to skip the first part of it, so theoretically we only had to take it our freshman and sophomore years, and then we'd be done with it. So I was like, okay, I can't switch now, so I'll stay with French. And it was just one of the worst decisions of my life, sticking with French. So I'm never going to use it. Never.
But I'm assuming that in French class you watched Ratatouille.
Oh, well, yeah, especially in middle school. That was just well, guys, I don't have anything for you today, so we're just going to pop this in with the French subtitles on it, and we're going to watch Ratatouille. So I've watched it multiple
Well, at least
times.
you got that instead of the French version with the English subtitles.
Yeah, they tried that once, and then for whatever reason, we just never did it again. So
Ratatouille's nice.
it's a solid
I
film.
agree.
Not my favorite. Not my favorite Pixar, but it's good.
No, it's there. You can turn it on.
So which one do
Ryan,
you guys
pick
want?
this week? I will be fine with any of the other 3. So
Oh,
Big Hero
no,
6 is a
no.
computer science guy, is what you're saying? So I could personally relate to this guy
Basically.
then, if it's computer science.
Yes, big computer
Ryan,
science
you pick.
guy.
I don't.
We should go back to Myrtle Beach. We got to go back to Myrtle Beach and go back to the Margaritaville there, and hopefully she's
We
still
will.
there. And we can go up to her and say, hey, he's a big NBA G League guy now, not computer science.
I guess technically computer science kind of applies to what I do there. So technically she was ahead of the curve on that, which I don't want to admit because I took a lot of heat for that for a number of years.
You were so upset. You were
I just
so
wanted to
upset.
enjoy my mac and cheese. Ryan, you got it? Did you pick one yet? I'm okay with any of the 3.
It's just I'm looking at I went to all movies A to Z just to look at the descriptions for a couple of these. There's so many movies. It's crazy.
I'm waiting. Glenn and I are waiting with anticipation here.
We're waiting very patiently. All the listeners are as well.
I guess we can try Big Hero 6 just
All right,
because
Big Hero 6.
I just see this big marshmallow guy and I've seen him in GIFs before, so maybe
Would you like to read the description of Big Hero 6?
yeah, okay, I'll read the description for Big Hero 6. So this is a 2014 film, hour and 48 minutes. So robotics prodigy Hero lives in the city of San Francisco. Next to his older brother, Tadashi, Hero's closest companion is Baymax, a robot whose sole purpose is to take care of people. When a devastating turn of events throws Hero into the middle of a dangerous plot, he transforms Baymax and his other friends Gogo, Tamago, Wasabi, Honey Lemon, and Fred into a band of high-tech heroes. This sounds great already.
Is this going to have an emotional turn at the end?
It's a Japanese flavor.
I can
Well,
tell.
it is a Disney. It is a Disney movie. So if you've learned anything from the past 5 Disney movies you've watched, there is an emotional turn at some point.
But is it on the level of Coco? Is what I'm, I guess, hinting at, or how prepared?
What were you? How prepared
Yeah,
should you
for
be?
the emotional turn compared to Coco.
It's not on the
All
same level as Coco. I don't think any Disney movie is on the same level as
All right.
Coco in terms
So
of
Big
emotion.
Hero 6, Ryan, we're good with that.
Yeah, well, Michael O'Sullivan of the Washington Post has said the real appeal of Big Hero 6 isn't its action, it's the central character's heart. So that sounds great already.
All right, so we have our segment for next week.
I can't wait. I might watch it with you because I've only watched it once.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about these movies is that me and Matt are watching them for the first time, so it's we're both experiencing it like that.
Do you
so that's pretty
guys-
cool.
Do you guys text privately about the movies that you're watching, or is it always in the
I
group
think
chat?
in a group.
always in the group chat.
Yeah,
And Zach is just no interest.
it was open for
No.
him to join this segment too. It was.
Zach wanted to do this, and I was like, first of all, Zach, you got to get your own podcast off the ground. And 2, he would have nothing to add to the conversation because he's not a part of the segment.
We could have all done a nice group watch together
Group
on Disney
watch.
Plus, just watched it all together.
I would have
but-
loved to hear his
Yeah.
take on
Zach's
Frozen.
just not interested. He's too busy. He's too busy being a medical professional.
Saving
God
He is,
bless.
lives.
he's much more important than we are. That's for sure.
So Big Hero 6 it is.
And Zach is a big hero in real life as a first responder. So there's a correlation.
I think that's great.
There you go.
So we gave Zach a shout out.
Fantastic.
And we picked our
That's
video.
what he wanted.
So there we go. Or video, film, whatever. I'm having a rough time speaking today. That's okay.
You had a rough time speaking today. You had a rough time last Saturday with our little running gag with the
It was
Toy Story 2.
It was a rough day.
Rough. Normally that's Zach that messes up.
Yeah, but that's why Ryan hit me with the oh no. I knew that because I it was like a split second. As soon as I sent mine, yours came in right as mine sent, and I'm like, oh no, I did it.
You did it. You did it. Oh man, what's next on the docket, Ryan?
What a good-looking question. So, what is there anything you would like to talk about, Glenn?
I don't know. We can run down memory lane. Sounds like a good time.
Okay, for those of you that are listening, what I'm doing is a pro podcaster tactic. I didn't have to prepare for this episode because I was just going to continue asking the guest what they wanted to talk about.
That's pro
So
mode.
I did not have to come
Matt.
up with any ideas.
Here's a question for Matt. Your favorite broadcast ever at Monmouth was what?
Catalina wine mixer was up there. We had a good time with that.
I think me and Ryan have the same answer.
Was that the Yale game or?
No.
Oh no,
No.
it's the Albany game. No,
No.
I'm trying to guess yours now. Is it the 14-inning softball game that took 5 hours?
That I won an award for? No.
So not only are we with a college basketball expert, we're with an award-winning
Yep.
broadcaster as well.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. I should have charged to come on this podcast today.
we should have
Since I'm
had a
such a
DM for an
success.
inquiry for an appearance on.
Talk. I mean, talk about my unemployment at the moment. I am very successful. Other than that,
I don't know.
I think me and Ryan, look at me look at me for a second, Ryan. We have the same broadcast that we have in mind, right?
I think so. I don't know.
So say it at the same time and just see.
Okay, countdown from
All right, 3,
Where am I?
2, 1.
Kennesaw.
Kennesaw.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. SpongeBob game.
Kennesaw was so much funny. Oh my god, me and Ryan were watching SpongeBob on the TV behind us while Matt's doing play-by-play of a football game. That's like a blowout.
I was trying. It was.
I'll never forget like the next day or the next time we were in school. I think the next Monday. Like we walk in and the Ferg's like, that was probably the funniest funniest radio broadcast I've ever heard.
When you go back and listen to it too, it's even funnier because you just know the context going into it. It was such a super important game, and then it just took a turn for the worse in the second half, and then we still had to be on the air.
They were into it. They were in it.
Absolutely.
at
And
half.
then, but it was like
Yeah.
a sudden turn coming out of halftime. They were instantly down by like 3 scores. But we still had to be on the air for like an hour and a half to 2 hours at that point. So it's like, what do we do? And you guys did it well.
Matt, when Ryan did the Sea Bear Circle joke, I don't think I've ever laughed harder in my entire life. I did not see that coming. It just punched me in the face.
Well, that's one of the benefits of college radio is that
anything
unlike Matt
goes.
and Eddie, who had to be serious and cordial for the
Poor
entire
guys.
broadcast,
What's the
We
fun in
could-
that?
we could joke around and say within reason whatever we wanted.
We were
So-
completely out of reason, though. Let's be honest.
Well, no, it was a nice
for the-
balance because I
it
tried
was-
to reel it in, but then you guys had to.
Because I think I broke Jimmy Butler news on that broadcast when he got traded to the Sixers.
I think it was that, and then I think Micah got signed as well to a G League team. So you were breaking news. I think Scott texted you, then you broke that. Then I think you broke the Jimmy Butler news. And then meanwhile, Kennesaw was going and scoring another touchdown.
And then you were calling that. Well, me and Ryan are having a
It was
completely
an
different
intense
conversation.
first half, though, too. It was.
It was.
It was, and we were serious in the first half, but then we needed to get some entertainment in the second half to keep
Had
people
to lighten the
listening.
mood a little
and the
bit,
game wasn't
yeah.
entertaining. So
That reminds me of an Iona game I did with Zach in Iona. Monmouth was getting destroyed. I think they gave up like 18 3-pointers in that game. So me and Zach decided to talk about Manny Machado for the entire second half and where he might end up. I don't know if you were bored out in that game, Matt, but I cannot imagine you being that thrilled with the topic of discussion.
No, honestly, I found it very interesting because at that point it was like a 20-point game at that point, and because at that point teams were in the bonus. There was a lot of stoppages. There's only so much you could talk about a blowout. I'm like, all right, let's talk baseball. Got me in the mood for spring training a little bit.
I never knew what was okay with Matt and what wasn't okay with Matt, because Matt at times was very serious.
But you got to admit, towards the tail end of our experience there, pretty much anything was.
His first year as sports director was very, very stressful. He was very serious and wanted everything to go perfectly. And as we know about the relationship between WMCX and athletics, it most often doesn't go perfectly.
I tried.
So I think that was an adjustment that Matt had to make.
I
think the best thing that ever happened to me was not winning sports director sophomore year.
Well, now in hindsight, seeing everything that happened, you probably are like, I don't.
Yeah, I got my own office.
You didn't have to.
I didn't have to deal with those people more than I already did.
Well, it wasn't. It was just everyone. It was just a very tense situation. Very tense on all sides, I will say, to keep it.
But let's be honest, if we could turn back time and go back and do it all over again, we would.
Yeah, it was.
I miss those days. It was so much fun.
We had really cool opportunities because I work with a lot of college radio people or former college broadcasters, and they never got to travel with the team. Like, they never knew what that's like to just sit and watch. Like, we got to sit and watch film some trips, right? I mean, yeah, I never would have been able. So there's a lot of really cool opportunities. I don't think I expected there to be a lot of stressful opportunities, but I think it prepared all of us to,
the way it works,
real world problem solving. But
now Ryan has a different kind of perspective on everything because he came in late, right? He came in junior year as a transfer. Now, Ryan, when you would hear from Matt when you were still at wherever you were, did it exceed expectations? Did you meet expectations about what you expected from WMCX and the broadcasting?
I wish that I was able to experience a 24-hour. That would have, I think, made things a little better. Not to say that they weren't good. It was a good time. I'm trying to think about what I want to say, what I want to hold back. Yeah, it was enjoyable. Just everyone there was very nice, very welcoming. Of course, I didn't really know what to expect going in because I knew one guy and that was about it. But the people were nice. Ferg was always very open. He was always a cool guy. I was glad that he was the advisor for that. So yeah, it was a good time.
Good. I was very nervous about Ryan coming in.
Oh, I know.
There was a meeting at the end of sophomore year where Matt ran it because he just won.
Oh, and right? Trap organized everyone.
It was Trap and Halper, kind of doing this smooth transition of power from the Halper Trap administration to
a transition team, something that
Yes, transition team, yeah. Exactly. And Matt was like, "Oh, I have a friend coming from home." I was like, "Oh, I'm done. It's over for me. Like, these two are just gonna run it." But I will say, Matt did a good job over his 2 years. I can't believe it was 2 years.
I can't either.
making sure everybody got the opportunities that they deserve, because it's hard. Like, there was so many people. It was me, Ryan, Noah came in, obviously Warlands and Zach when he wasn't at the Outlook.
Especially when we first started junior year, when we had 15 people almost. But, a lot of people got busy towards the middle of the season, which is hard. You mean, expect anyone to be consistent.
Obviously, Paul, too.
So
it's... I think you did a very good job. It's something I probably wouldn't have been able to do. I probably would have sucked at it. But
I appreciate that.
And there's a lot of times where you were put in really shitty situations. So
yeah,
I appreciate.
What's
that's
what are you
you
laughing
handled,
about,
I think
Matt?
you handled it much better than I
a lot
would.
of the things like why I was so high. I think I was just trying to make sure no one else had to deal with it. So I tried to shoulder that those situations. But regardless, it was still really fun. Like to be able to say like we were courtside and to be able to follow these like, I guess to some people, I don't want to say larger than life characters, but like just for a lot of people, sports is like you sit in the stands and it's very abstract. But for us, we're like right on the court, like we're involved, like.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all really cool. I think I definitely learned like college athletics. Like I really missed that side of it. Like it's something that.
Yeah, if I watch a college basketball game, like I wish I was like.
Well, you tweeted
there.
that the other day. That's I was going to bring that up. You tweeted that you were calling the Eastern Illinois.
Yeah, I had this little
Ohio
mic in front of
State
me, and I had it muted, and I was pretending to do it because before Monmouth, I never liked college basketball. Now I'm an expert. So, before in high school and stuff, like I've never been able to get into college sports because there's so much turnover with the roster and everything, and I never got into it. And then now I got into it because I got to see how it works firsthand. So that's something that I really appreciate from Monmouth. I appreciate the radio station. I lived there basically for 3 years. I lived in that office the last year. I missed that office more than anything in the world. But it was fun. It was a fun place to just go. I spent more time there than I did at my house or my dorm.
We learned a lot about just sports and just scheduling and having to budget our time. And, you remember me doing a research paper in, 70-degree Myrtle Beach. Like it taught us a lot of life lessons, taught me a very big life lesson that weekend to not procrastinate a 15-page research paper on Soviet bloc Russia. So
next time you have that assignment, you'll know.
Yeah.
Not
whenever,
to do that.
Thankfully I don't have to do an assignment for school ever again, which is great.
I think we were at Monmouth at the best time ever to be at Monmouth.
Yeah, well,
in terms of like Robinson being there and people caring about, like, for the first time people cared about the school because of that 1 year. Ryan unfortunately wasn't there at the time, but that freshman and sophomore year we had, I wasn't a part of the freshman year, but sophomore year, all eyes were on Monmouth because they just had that run freshman year where they should have got the at-large, and then that sophomore year they come back and everybody's looking at them and they do the same thing they did the year before, and national media is still on them, right? And they get that 1 seed. They probably had the best regular season they ever had, and unfortunately they ended in the Nico Clarith year, and at the time it was really disappointing and like devastating that they lost like that. But if you look back years later at that sophomore year season, when we were sophomores, that was probably my favorite year, not only at WMCX but in college in general, because like everybody knew what Monmouth was, and we kind of actually got that 1 year of feel where we were like at one of those major Power 5 schools, even though we weren't, obviously. But for a mid-major, like we got as much notoriety as possible as we could.
That team itself also probably had the greatest collection of talent in program history, right? I mean, you have a guy in Justin who's tearing it up right now in Europe. Chris Brady's been playing well professionally. Like Jalan, Micah, both quality professional players who've been kind of moving around. And then even on the coaching staff too, right? Dwayne Woodward, who's now at Seton Hall. You have a guy in Jamal Meeks who played under Bob Knight in Indiana, right? King Rice, like just the whole aura, like there's just so much knowledge and talent.
They had Austin Tillman coming off the bench. The point guard off the bench.
What does that say? And I know we always joke about the Clarith game, but what does that say about that achievement that he did that day to single-handedly take down that Monmouth team? Because I mean, I know he made like 8 3-pointers or 9 3-pointers, like 8 of them in the second half, and I still say to this day that was the single greatest achievement I've seen out of an individual player in all the broadcasts we've done.
I mean, it was just a slow death that game.
Walk. He had a sprained ankle.
And every time I talked to someone who was around WMCX and like the basketball team at that time, the Nico Clarith game always is categorized as the same or summarized as the same as just like this slow death where you just knew it was coming, and like every single shot that he made was just like another stab into like your back. Like you
could hear it.
Like that was really,
you could hear it in Trap's voice too on the broadcast as we were doing it. I mean, some of those shots were right in front of us too, and the crowd was going crazy because it was a home game for Siena,
a home game,
which obviously is going to kind of be the case.
Isn't it anymore?
It's going to be a home game for Monmouth now, depending on how that draws whenever they're allowed to bring people back. But it was just crazy. It was like a wild end to a wild era. And I mean wild in an endearing way, just in terms of like the wild ride you're taking on, going to all these places. And it benefited everyone who came, after too. I mean, like King still scheduled really good non-conference games. Like Ryan went to Seton Hall. Like you did a game at the Garden, Glen. Like those 2 years benefited that program for years to come. And like, so I think those 2 years really set the table.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that freshman year. It was like Thanksgiving, and they were playing at the Orlando tournament. They were playing Notre Dame, and I wasn't involved at WM6 at the time. I just knew Monmouth was playing Notre Dame, and they beat Notre Dame. And I think, did they beat UCLA first and then Notre Dame, or did they beat Notre Dame and then UCLA? So they beat UCLA. That was big. But UCLA, that wasn't the Lonzo Ball UCLA when they got good. They were still like unranked at the time, I believe. But it's still UCLA,
they had some
right?
talented pieces,
and then they beat and then Notre Dame was 17 in the country at the time.
Yep, you're right. 17.
So they were 17, and I remember like freaking out on Thanksgiving because they beat Notre Dame, and they just kept winning. They beat USC. Did they beat Georgetown? Is that the team
they took Dayton down to the wire too.
Georgetown
in Orlando.
Dayton down to the wire. They just beat all these teams. That fight against Iona, was that freshman year when they
winter break.
They got that fight. I remember that Iona game. I went as a fan freshman year at home. And the one thing I knew going into college in general, like I never thought I'd be involved in the radio station, and I never thought I'd do broadcasts, but going into college, the one thing I was upset about, I was happy to go to Monmouth. That was my top choice. That's where I wanted to go. But I was kind of sad that I was missing that kind of like Duke, like North Carolina, like kind of atmosphere for a college basketball game as a fan or football game. And I thought I'd never get that in my 4 years. But for that one game where they got absolutely destroyed, Monmouth did. Like it was horrible. That arena was loud. There was not a seat to be had. The student section was absolutely insane. I don't think it'll ever be like that ever again.
No.
So I think that we get that one like opportunity to have that. And I think that's cool.
Yeah. And then I know the hype was still there when Ryan came in too. That year when Micah was still there. I mean, that after all those wins, surprisingly, the sports director at the time, Gifford, put me, a freshman, on their home opener when that was like their first game against Wagner. And it was like a sellout, and I'm just like, should I even be here right now? I'm like, it was great, but like, it was like an event, right? So like a Friday night, you remember this, Glenn? Like if they were, the J-Rob teams were playing on a Friday night, that would be like the pregame. Then you would go to whatever respective party you were going to go to. Like that was the event. Like that. Yeah, it was like that was the talk of campus. So it was, I think about it a lot. I always, say like we could have, like I wish I appreciated it more. I guess because I thought you never really appreciate anything until after the fact, right? Because you never.
But when you're like a freshman and like this is happening, you're like, oh, this is just how it's going to be from now on.
Yeah, well, they were like, I want to say they were like right around 500 our senior year of high school, and they lost to Iona, and I'm like, okay, like they'll be decent. Like I'll try and work my way in. We'll see what happens. And it was that was just crazy. And I think those were some of the stories I would tell Ryan too when I was trying to get him to come to Monmouth, right? Like, that was one of my big selling points was like, dude, like this is, crazy stuff. But I miss our.
And then Ryan comes on the team all of a sudden as a steady decline. That junior year was rough.
Yeah.
That junior year was rough.
They were both rough for me. I mean, junior year they just they could never really get it together. They were pretty inconsistent all throughout. Of course, Micah had injury issues for the entire season. You didn't know when he was going to play or if he was healthy. And then the next year, of course, they didn't win a game until New Year's Eve. And by that point, I had already decided that I was done, and I could not call Monmouth basketball games anymore. I was just burnt out from all the losing. So I took a sabbatical to explore some different opportunities. But then I came back for baseball and softball, and that was fun. But yeah, the basketball teams, I kind of missed the boat a little bit, I suppose.
And give Matt credit for that senior year. When they were 0-12, Matt, maybe it was just blind loyalty, but Matt was like, no, they're going to be all right. They're going to be fine.
You know what? I'll be completely honest. It was blind loyalty. There was nothing behind that. It was just me trying to still keep people interested because, like, you know, outside of, like, us and Noah and Zach, no one's going to want to, like, they'll look at the record and be like, I don't want to spend my Saturday going to, I don't know, Poughkeepsie to go do a Marist game. But, like, I'm trying to keep selling it as best I could. But you're right. Blind loyalty.
But they had a decent run in the MAC regular season.
They did.
There was a point they were first in the MAC in the regular season. Then me and Matt went to the Ryder and they lost.
Yeah.
Remember that Ryder game? The fans were just all over King Rice, everything. That's what they do over there. And then they made that run in the MAC tournament to the final. And we talked about it like an hour and a half ago, right? That run is something that I will remember forever because it was unexpected. I think me and Matt were both worried that like they were just going to lose early and then all the work we put in for Matt 4 years and me 3 would be kind of just die like without kind of like a bang. And we got that bang. We got that run that me and Matt, I feel like we kind of deserved working for so long. And then our last MAC tournament, or my first and Matt's 5th, whatever it was.
3rd, but I don't count junior year. So. That was a quick in and out experience.
No, but I think Matt would agree that we're both very grateful that the team went on that run, even though they didn't win. And at the time it hurt. And it was a very quiet ride home from Albany.
Also because
I think looking back a year and a half later.
Zach's music, that was a big contributor for why it was quiet.
I think me and Matt would both agree, looking back a year and a half, 2 years later, that we're happy that they made that run, even though they didn't win.
I agree. I mean, I think in some ways too, with all the outside noise with the start they had and, you know, everything else was the J-Rob season like the fluke. I mean, I always tip my hat to the team and the coaches, right? Because to go from that kind of start to being one win away from the NCAA tournament, that takes a team and coaching effort, right? I mean, that's all hands on deck. I mean, I never saw, you know, any of the coaches like pack it in, say like, all right, you know, like nobody, none of the managers, nobody packed it in. We're still going everywhere and playing the games and playing hard. And, you know,
and King would come to us after losses and pack it in, where the head coach would come up to us and say, hey, it is what it is. No, King was pissed after every single loss. And at the time, like for us, it's kind of intimidating. Oh God, what are we going to ask him? Is he going to lash out on us? Blah, blah, blah. But looking back, it was good that he did that because that's a sign of someone who believes in his team and he's a leader. And he knew even at 0-12 that this team was better than that. And they ended up being better than that, being, you know, 60 minutes away or 40 minutes away, however long the game is, 40 minutes away from the NCAA tournament. And I think that King should be the coach at Monmouth for as long as he wants to be. I think he's earned that. And I think it's only a matter of time for it to finally work out in the end, because you just gotta find that one magical run, and he's gotten close twice. He's been to the finals twice.
He should have gotten in,
and he ran into a
freshman year.
Yeah, and he ran into a dynasty, right? And then he got you know, screwed by the committee that should have put them in over Syracuse, even though Syracuse went to the Final Four that year, I think. But I think it's only a matter of time before he gets Monmouth.
Well, his teams have graded out really well statistically. Like when I was doing this preview, I mean, they're one of the best teams at forcing turnovers in the country, creating transition opportunities. I mean, statistically, his teams grade out really well. It's just, people look at the record itself. Like, we live in a very, how do I phrase it? The casual sports fan will only look at the base level numbers, like record, and this applies to anyone. Like in Major League Baseball, there's still fans that look at like pitching record and like stats that don't matter. College basketball, your record really, if you're a mid-major, your record doesn't matter. It's like, as long as you're in contention in your conference, it's all that should matter. And that was a really tough non-conference slate, as it is every year, but his teams always statistically grade out well. I think this year they'll have a really decent chance. I've said it to both of you before, like, good guard play wins this league. That's why we saw Iona win when we were there, Glenn, because of AJ English and then Ricky McGill and every other talented player they had. But they'll be good this year. It'll be, hopefully this will be the last COVID pause that they have. Because it's got to suck for the players to literally be on game day for the season opener, and then you just stop again, right? So It'll be exciting when they get back into it. It'll be tough for them because they'll open up with conference play, which is something that's very difficult for any team.
I think this is going to be a cop-out because it's so like cliche to say that you only go as long as your best player takes you, but I think this team is going to go as far as Dion will take them. Dion's the guy. He's the senior now, which is hard to say because we remember him as freshmen. We remember him as a freshman when we were juniors, I think. But he's the guy, and he can score without Salnave and without all these guys that have left over the past 3 years. It's his team, and he's going to be the main scorer, and he's going to need to carry the load offensively because it's a very young team. There's not a lot of people I remember that were there when we were there. So I think this is Dion's season.
I think that means we're getting old when we recognize very few.
Yeah.
On the women's roster, I don't recognize virtually anyone outside of,
I think it's Lucy Thomas
and Jen Lauro, because she was there sitting out as a transfer, so she was there, but she didn't play. But like, other than that, I mean, I couldn't tell you who. So I think that means we're getting old, which is not a good. Yeah, it's
rough. I don't like that. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Monmouth basketball?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna hold back some of my thoughts on the off chance that certain people listen to this. But I'm excited for the men's team. I think that as long as they are able to have a season, I think they will be in contention for a title. As for the women, I've always been a big fan of their coach, Jody Craig. I always loved how whenever she would come over to us for interviews after the game, you could ask her whatever you wanted. She would not be afraid to answer 100% honestly. I mean, I remember asking her when we were at Marist, I forget what the question was, but she was like, yeah, I mean, we try to teach these kids what to do, and we're calling these plays for these kids, and they're just not running the plays. And, I mean, that kind of took me back a little bit because I wasn't expecting an honest, frank answer after, I mean, the performance they just had. But I really wish that, I mean, it's easy for me to say this just sitting in my room, but I really wish they'd explore the short conference a little more when it comes to getting players for the team, because I say this as someone that watched those games and those players. There's a lot of talent in the short conference, but I mean, you look at your roster, they have players from all over the globe, really. There's not really a huge local presence, which is always thought was a little surprising. So I think that if they start to tap into that market a little more, I think the performance might be a little better. But as I said, that's easy for me to say sitting in my bedroom. I mean, for all I know, they could be doing that and they just don't find any players that they like. I don't know. But I definitely miss it. I said that I got burnt out calling the games and everything my senior year, but at the same time, I wish I could go back and do some more. Because in the moment, like, I was just done, and I said I never want to do it again. But now I definitely wish I could go back and do some more.
Imagine.
Yeah, I think we all share that.
Imagine that interview with Jody at Marist, and this is a small arena, so they win by like 20, and they're blasting Bruce Springsteen on the loudspeakers right over top of us, and she's giving this answer, and then we have to get back on the bus after, and I'm like, oh no, like what is this, gonna be like? But it's just a very, I don't know, we learned a lot from there, so it was I miss it. I'll watch the games, but whenever I watch the games, I just get, the fear of missing out. Like, I feel like I'm missing out on something, right? Like, I feel like I need to be there.
Well, we're not really missing out because we're not allowed in.
Well, I'm saying last year. Last year when I watched, I'd be like, why didn't I go right from work to go watch the game? Like, I should be there kind of thing, but it was strange.
Next year, hopefully we'll have fans back at Ocean First Bank Center, and it's only an hour for both of us, right? Is it an hour for you?
Like an hour 15.
Yeah, so that's an easy drive. Hopefully, especially on a weekend if I'm working. Hopefully, I will be working, but it's fun to always go back. It's a good area.
Always find your way back home.
Even though we don't exactly. Like, I'm glad we got that in here for the podcast. But like, whenever you meet with people like you went to college with, it's always easy because everyone's like spread out now since we graduated. It's always easy to say, oh, meet me at Monmouth. That's always seems to be the consensus idea when you rekindle with people.
Go to meet at Jack's Goal Line Stand.
Jack's Goal Line Stand.
Do
you remember the line?
Yeah. Are we giving free ad space here, Ryan?
We already said the name of the bar.
Yeah,
but then we're getting into their advertising copy. I mean, that's they're not paying us to talk about their hours and what they offer.
They are located on Brighton Avenue, though, in Long Branch, New Jersey.
And if you did want more information, you could go on their website.
Yeah, you guys can figure out the website on your own. That's as much free press as I'm going to give them, personally. But yeah, that was the last time we were all together, really, was January 5th, which seems like a lifetime ago. At this point, with everything that's transpired since that day, we were at a Monmouth basketball game, and then we went to this eatery, this establishment that's on Brighton Avenue.
It's located on 149 in Brighton.
Who's to say, really? But we went there, and then that was it. Then we all went our separate ways, and then everything just snowballed down as the weeks went on, and now we find ourselves here. So
we were planning a MAC tournament trip.
We were.
And then it got quickly sidelined, but for good reason.
That was the craziest day ever. There's 2 days at ABC for me that were insane. One was Kobe. That was wild. Because I was going up the escalator, and I look at my phone because it buzzed, and I was like, this isn't real. This didn't happen, and it did. And then I got slammed at work because everyone wanted Kobe stuff. The second craziest day was my last day there, which I didn't know would be my last day. And just like one by one, like every 5 minutes, a different conference would drop out. And I think Mac was like the last or one of the last, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the whole tournament got canceled. That was a crazy day. That March 13th through 15th kind of scenario where it felt like the world was ending because Rudy Gobert got sick and he touched a bunch of phones on the press conference table. And then all the basketball conferences started dropping out of the tournaments. Those were crazy. That was crazy. And it's amazing that it's been so long. It's been 9 months now. And we're still here, struggling to get out of it. But hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, again, Glenn, remember the pandemic ended
last
month or earlier this month. So,
yeah.
But we'll
That's
get
what people
there.
would say.
It's that was a really surreal. I was watching that Thunder game while it was unfolding. So it was crazy night, crazy world we live in now, but at least we get to talk sports again.
Yeah,
and
I
Disney
remember.
Plus.
Yeah, and Disney Plus, and soon Jersey Shore, and for Ryan, The Sopranos,
and for you, Star Wars.
Yes,
so
exactly.
There we go. Yeah,
I need to watch The Phantom Menace at some point.
You will not like it.
I won't like it.
You will like the final 30 minutes of the next two films.
Okay.
But the first 2 hours are
tough.
Very. So
I like the recent trilogy.
That's a toss-up. So sorry to branch off, Ryan. I'll let you reel it back in a second. So the original trilogy you just watched, right, is very action, adventure, space opera, like that whole kind of thing. The next three you're going to watch are very very politically geared in some
Okay.
ways. Like you'll see the kind of hands moving. I like the next 3 movies you're going to watch, but you need the, like, Star Wars fans hate them.
Okay.
And they hate Star Wars fans hate every single movie that you're going to watch from here on out.
Okay.
Because they're
Sounds
not
good.
happy with anything. But the Disney ones are a toss-up. I'm not going to tell you how I feel about those, but those are a toss-up. But the next 3, I can make a case for have some redeeming qualities. Revenge of the
Okay.
Sith is my favorite movie of all of them.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You should be looking forward to those movies as well. They're a great time. Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for almost 2.5 hours, so we might have to split this up into 2 parts. Maybe get 2 episodes this week, which will be
Ooh.
fun.
Exciting.
Back to back.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Harmon could only give us 50 minutes of his day, but Glen DeNigris has taken out 2.5 hours. So
I'm getting you guys right up until that 2:30 game. What's that 2:30 game that you guys love so much?
Indiana Providence.
I'm going Indiana.
It's a good pick.
I'm good. I'm a certified college basketball expert.
It's a good pick.
yeah, on the Torvik thrill quotient, Indiana and Providence is the best game of the day. So
Good stuff.
that'll be, I think. Oh, but Sarah Fuller, love to see that she kicked in a Power 5 game. That was nice to see. The comments were not nice to see, but it was cool.
Can we address the amount of toxic, just stupid people that are still out there? Like,
I don't give it the time of day. I don't even read it.
I check because I want to see if we've kind of lost that part and lost that part of society for the better. Like, I feel like it's 2020. We shouldn't still be doing this, but people still do. For those who want to criticize it, that's where the kick was supposed to go. That was a designed play. We should celebrate this, but the comments, Ryan, were awful.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of cool things that happened this weekend in terms of females in football. Callie Brownson took over as a position coach for, I believe, the tight ends for the Cleveland Browns. So that was nice to see. Yeah, I tell myself every time that I'm not going to read the comments, but I have the same mindset as Matt. Like, okay, well, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm never pleasantly surprised. It's always a mess. So I'm hoping, I guess I shouldn't be not going to get political. I guess I shouldn't get too surprised based on what happened in the election almost a month ago and the way that people voted. But I hope that we get to a point in the relatively near future when I can read a comment section and it's not toxic. It's just supportive and excited and just good. And it's not the stuff that I saw with Sarah Fuller or Callie Brownson or anybody. It's always a mess.
I wouldn't hold your breath. I just think people suck.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Great majority of our country fits into that category.
Some would
Not
say
getting
it would be
political.
some would say it would be the silent majority of our country.
Yeah. Some would say that, I don't know where I was going with that. You were right. Yeah. Silent majority.
The silent majority doesn't care for, progressive thinking.
And all those people who make those comments too never saw a football field, never put on a helmet. They
you
sit
do
there.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's people who think they're an expert because they sit and watch the NFL on Sunday and like think they know everything.
But it's not even this specific comment. Like whenever like the ESPN accounts like would say something about the WNBA, there's always comments about the WNBA. Like if you don't like it, that's fine. Just don't comment on it then.
Anyone in the WNBA will beat any of those people in the comments 11-0 in a one-on-one game. It's not even I don't even have to think twice. But they like to think different. But like
just like how you think you can beat LaMelo Ball 1-on-1.
All right, that one I need to rescind that one as the number 3 pick in the NBA draft. That take did not age well, but at the time he was what, like 16? So I was like, yeah, I could beat a 16-year-old in basketball. But yeah, Ryan, you're a big baller fan. You love
Yes,
the
there's
whole
video.
brand.
There's video out there where I say that I am a member of the Big Baller brand, and I defended. Who stole sunglasses? Was that LiAngelo?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I defended him stealing some sunglasses.
What was your What was your justification for him stealing glasses?
I would have to go back and watch to get my full quote. I don't. I needed to defend the brand because it was under fire at that point.
Do you own a shirt from them?
I don't own a shirt, no. But I mean, Lonzo was not performing very well. LaMelo was getting slandered by someone that was co-hosting the warm-up. LiAngelo had just stolen sunglasses, so I felt that it was my responsibility to defend the brand.
Gotcha.
So I had to spin zone it a little bit, and I thought I did a good job of it. So, yeah.
All right. Sounds good to me.
This was fun. We'll have to do this again soon. It did not quite reach 4 to 6 hours, but it was still a hefty unit here. So yeah, this was a good time. We want to thank Glen DeNigris after mentioning and name dropping for 16 episodes, 15 weeks. Want to thank him for finally taking the time out of his day to join us on this episode of the podcast. Is there anything else you would like to say to the listeners who are finally hearing you for the first time?
I'm glad they finally get to hear me because, you know, you guys always talked about me, even when you didn't talk about me. There was times where you were like someone who refused to be named or would like to remain anonymous. You would say that when I never said that. I never want to be anonymous. Ryan, there was a time when you were talking about the start bench. Oh, we don't have a start bench cut today. Oh, whatever. You did a start bench cut with the NFL music, CBS, NBC, and Fox. And you're like, this is brought to us by a listener who wants to not be mentioned and remain anonymous. And that was me. And I never gave you that direction. So please use my name as much as you want.
Well, we were giving too much free publicity. So we needed to try to dial it back a little bit. Clearly it did not work.
I think I shouted you out on Ice the Kicker last week.
You might have. I don't remember.
I think I said something about the Eagles. I was like, I know a lot of Eagles fans. Shout out Ryan. Really quick. That are sick of ones.
Ryan.
Oh, by the way, Peyton's Places is now back for season 2. I've began watching season 1, and it's actually pretty interesting. And now it's back for season 2. So that's fun.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So if you guys need to watch some college basketball tonight, because there's no other sports on, it's just college basketball. You have Alabama and Stanford at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Auburn at UCF will be fun. You have Boston College and St. John's. I guess that's 6 p.m. Duquesne and Little Rock, that's on pretty soon, so that could be a fun game. But
very good game. It's a very exciting game. There's a lot of really good games on this week too. We get number 1 versus number 2 on Saturday. Glenn, as a college basketball expert, I know you're very excited for.
I cannot be more excited. I am dying of anticipation.
Well, I mean, even we have Gonzaga and West Virginia coming up on the 2nd. So what's that, Wednesday? Yeah. So that's number 1. So that'll be fun.
But most importantly, guys, you have Big Hero 6.
Yeah. I will not wait until Sunday night to watch it either. We will we will not do what we did this past week.
Good.
Well, thank you, Glenn, for coming on to the show. And we will be sure to bring you on again sometime soon and catch up. So thank you.
No worries. I love coming on. I am bored when there's not a microphone in front of my face. So please, anytime you want.